All right, let's go ahead and call this Sandy City Council work session to order. Jeff, can you call the roll?
Yes, Councillor Petzold.
Here.
Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Sheldon.
Here.
Councillor Walker.
Here.
Councillor Exner.
Here.
Councillor Hokinson.
Here.
Mayor Pulliam.
Here. Well, welcome everybody. Let's do a quick review of tonight's agenda. I will pause for any questions or comments directed towards staff for later this evening. First is changes to the agenda. Any changes to the agenda tonight or that we need to discuss yet? All right, great. Then we'll go on to public comment, and then we'll have our consent agenda. Any questions on City Council meeting minutes from last week, or from, well, I'm sorry, from the 19th of January. All right. Under old business, we're going to discuss the options A and B for letter to the governor on the COVID-19 restrictions. Any questions on that before we get into it tonight? Okay.
The question I had was, when was the options posted in the agenda? Because when I first looked at the agenda, they weren't on there. So.
Yeah, because I believe there was some back and forth going on. I think they ended up finally getting posted sometime this morning.
Yeah, this morning. Yep.
Okay, because I hadn't read them yet because of that, I guess.
Okay. Public hearing proposed building fee increase. Any comments or questions on that before we discuss it tonight? Okay. We'll then go to the report from the city manager, committee and council reports, and then we'll adjourn. Just a quick reminder is that we have our Urban Renewal Board meeting following immediately after our Sandy City Council meeting. Any questions on that? All right, great. So in tonight's work session, we have two items. First one is, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
I was a little slow on that urban. As I have not participated in one of those, and I was looking up a little history, can you give me 1 minute who is on that board?
Yeah, no problem. So it's the Urban Renewal Board. It's our Sandy City Council. We have a representative from the fire district, and it's usually Fire Chief Snyder. And then we have a representative from the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce. Their designee is usually their executive director, Chris Jones. And so that is the board that oversees all the expenditures for our Urban Renewal Fund. We have the Urban Renewal District, which then, puts money into the Urban Renewal Fund.
Okay.
Is that good? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions before we go into our work session tonight? All right, great. So again, Sandy Arts Commission, next steps will be our first item on the work session, and then we'll talk about the proposed changes to Title 13 of the Sandy Municipal Code. With that, Jordan, do you want to get us started? I know it's probably Tyler doing a lot of the talking on it for the Sandy Arts Commission next steps.
Yeah, Tyler will give the staff report. We sort of debated whether this would be a topic that would be at the council goal setting, but given the effort on visioning and the limited time that we really have to get into the goal setting, thought doing this as a work session during these early months of the year would be the best time to do this. And really this is to get your direction on this Arts Commission and refilling those positions, starting recruitment, and also developing a work plan so that we can come on the right foot right out of the gate. I know there's a lot of interest in the future of this board or commission, and we really wanted to get your thoughts and interest before we start that recruitment process. And once we get your go-ahead, would be set to do that. So Tyler has a few questions, some different options for the council, and getting your general direction, but I'll let him finish the staff report.
Thanks, Jordan. So as most of you know, we had a fully functioning Arts Commission for a little over a year, 2 years, I guess, or so. And then last fall, there was some resignations, and since then a couple of terms have expired. And so we currently have 6 openings out of a 7-member commission. The Arts Commission is tasked with, encouraging, conducting, sponsoring public art and public art programs. And they did a great job when we had a fully functioning commission. We had a chalk art contest. We started an art inventory project. And then there was some bumps along the road with proposed mural and some other, issues that came up. And so here we are now with quite a vacant board commission rather at the moment. At one point in time, council had some questions about residency requirements and whether or not this should remain a commission or be converted to a board, an advisory board like parks or library or transit, something like that. And so really what we're looking for today is some general consensus on whether it's a board or commission, whether or not we should have residency requirements added to that. And then also prioritizing some of the projects that the Art Commission would be tasked with. So obviously at our last discussion about this, we talked about the Arts Master Plan. That was a big topic of conversation. And I think just figuring out how do we prioritize that and where does that fit in with all the other projects and priorities that are on the council's plate currently. And then we have a good listing of the city's art inventory currently, but we want to make sure that stays updated and maintained as far as what's the status and condition of our current art, getting a sort of refurbishment policy in place so that we make sure our murals don't deteriorate like they had in the past, and we stay on top of those things so they're not almost being recreated, but we keep them in good working order for the foreseeable future. And then lastly, developing recommendations for city policies and procedures, whether that's, acquiring new art, disposing of existing art. How do we manage the donation process? Are we seeking donations, or are we just, trying to get grants for new art? Are we allocating general revenue for new art? Just some, initial steps like that so that we can, once we have a fully functioning board or commission again, move forward and hit the ground running.
All right, cool. Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Thanks. Two questions. The first is, can you give me that 60-second difference of what a commission versus a board is and why this matters?
Don, just so you know, you're going to ask that probably about 100 more times between now and the end of this room.
So
okay.
We all have, I think, or some of us have a general idea of what the difference is. I reached out to David earlier this week or early last week to see if I could get the legal answer. And the shortest, most concise answer I think I can provide you, and David, step in if you want, is really the authority to act, not just advisory. So by law, there's no legal definition that because you're a commission, you have additional authority, but the general consensus is that by establishing a commission, you're giving them some level of authority to act.
So in layman terms,
I nailed that one.
Okay, real quick. So in layman terms, though, the reason they were, my understanding is the reason they were provided kind of the commission role was we wanted to give them a budget. Is that correct?
That is what Kim had proposed when we created it.
And so is that, Tyler, where you get to acting? Because now you actually have a monetary way to act?
I guess you could make that argument, yes. I mean, I think that there's no one saying that we couldn't, provide the library board some, dollar threshold to act on library programming, right? We haven't done that, but there's nothing that to my knowledge, that says we can't. And so, yes, the intent was that we were going to give the Arts Commission a budget, let them, work some of those things out and make some baseline decisions so we didn't have to come to the council every other month to, approve a $500 art project or something like that. Ultimately, though, that sort of ended up going through me as the approver before any funds were spent. One, because I was the liaison, or am the liaison to the board, but I think the finance director role sort of, that fell and I lapped there as well. But it sounds like from my conversations with David, there's no legal requirement that they need to be an established commission to provide them with a budget. I think where we need to just be cautious is, what is that budget for? Is it to, originally part of that budget that was created was to allow the commission to sort of begin, right? We had an interim staff member that was helping sort of draft the original bylaws and get the commission off the ground and get them functioning. So a lot of that budget went to pay salary for that. There was a very small amount that actually went to programming.
Okay. And if Carl doesn't speak, I'm going to be toast here soon. So Carl, you're up.
I've been raising my hand here for the last 5 minutes. So won't make any more about that than that. I was involved in a lot of the preliminary portions of getting the Art Commission up and running. Certainly the budget item was one of those reasons why we wanted to have a commission over a committee. But I want to say though that budget decisions were very limited. Anytime we came up with and I would say I meant the Art Commission, came up with a decision they wanted to buy, spend, do anything, it was always with the knowledge that there was going to have to be some sort of permission, either by the council, by the budget director, something that would be certainly just not the commissioners spending money without any direction, without any understanding of how that should be progressed. And secondly, there was the understanding that there would be probably, as time goes by, a lot of donations, both monetarily, specified for specific projects, whether it would be a purchasing of an artifact, establishing some sort of art item, much like the chalk art thing that happened right out of the boat, and that there would be probably many artists that would be wishing to either donate for permanently or some interim responsibility of the art itself. So there would be sculptures, could be paintings, could be a number of different things that would be given to some sort of body that would be able to be responsible for it, put it in safe places, display it in a way that it was designed to be under whatever authority was given by the donations and those kind of things. So there was a concern that a committee really didn't have the ability or the authority to be able to do that without having to go to a commission basis. And so we felt that at that time, and that was passed by the council at that time with that understanding that they would be a commission instead of a council or a committee, excuse me.
So just to kind of get the conversation moving along, we do have a lot going on tonight. So first of all, let's just tackle this. Commission or committee?
Before anyone answers that, I'll provide one more piece of information for you, Mayor. In my conversation with David again, it was sort of the end result of that conversation was if we decide to stick with a commission, what's the level of authority that we want to delegate to the commission? Is it purchases for art up to a certain dollar amount? Is it, specific programs that they can put on without, authority or without permission from the council, rather? Certain grants that they may apply for, let's set some bounds around what they can do if it is going to remain a commission and what that level of authority is. So just planting that seed before we get too far into the conversation.
And then when the committee's really or commission, when it's really like gearing and moving, how much staff time does it take?
Depends. It took a lot of staff time when we were in the middle of the mural discussions and, with staffing the commission and then having the conversation with the Urban Renewal Board about, next steps in the mural process. That was a very labor intensive couple of months during that project. I think, once we have a commission that knows their bounds and we have, good sort of controls around the whole process, it will obviously require much less than it had in the past.
Okay, let's go Carl, and then I saw Kathleen's hand up.
Okay, so having been involved in our commission from day zero, -0 actually, and all through the commission's meetings and such, I think that one of the things that is sort of unique about the Art Commission is that there really isn't any strong tie to any particular department. And it first started out with a temporary employee that I think he tried the hardest he could, but he didn't have all of the ability to connect with the rest of the city. We've had Tyler for the last year plus, and I got to say that's probably the best thing that could have happened for the Art Commission, because they had a number of questions about what was legally needed to be done before they did something, and also the budget was a big thing for them. They wasn't sure how that all could be organized. So Tyler was really a key person in that particular aspect. And the interviews that I conducted when everybody escaped said it over and over again. First off, they really liked Tyler as the liaison, but there really wasn't a staff that was the example I heard several times was the planning commission was connected to the planning director. There was a very strong tie there. A lot of the things that interacted with the planning department and the planning commission were interacted very strongly. The art commission doesn't really have a connected department that does that kind of relationship. And all of them felt that there could have been either a better, less significant removal of all the seats, all the resignations, if there had been more understanding about what was happening inside the commission at the time. And then finally, and this is not a deterrent against Tyler, I think that the art commission didn't really have a staff person who had a lot of the time available. Tyler's got the budgetary responsibilities, and I understand he's doing a lot of things with Jordan now as part of the other responsibilities. And by the time you add a lot of that stuff together, sometimes it's hard to interact a lot. So I think that a staff position need to be a little bit more well-built, well-designed to make that work.
Thank you, Kathleen.
My turn. So I've made a few notes for myself just to keep my on track and be brief. But the Arts Commission and arts projects in the town, including sculpture, murals, performing art, and other artistic endeavors are vitally important. I would tend to disagree a little bit with some of what you said, Carl, but I would suggest that, finance department is not the right location for this. I would suggest that our community services department would be a better fit, especially because there's such a direct connection with the arts projects, with art in the parks, art along trails, our community events that have performing art components, our movies, all those things are part of I think the delivery of improving our art in Sandy. That said, I think that I have a little concern about that we are temporarily kind of getting beyond our bandwidth with all the projects and the commissions and all that. We have so many advisory boards, and our focus, as I think we're finding out from our goal setting, but we'll find out for the last chapter here in a week or two, that our wastewater, community campus, parks and trails master plan adoption, planning commission, and the short and long-term comp plan stuff, and the urban renewal projects are all pretty high on the to-do list. And we may be prudent to let this arts commission kind of sleep for just a year or two until we clear those other higher priorities off the plate, and then we can really tackle this arts commission with gusto. That said, I do believe that the bylaws do need to be changed. I believe it should be an advisory council, just like the Parks Advisory Board. I mean, the Parks has a far larger budget involved than the Arts Commission, and it's an advisory board because we want to be able to kind of get them to give us their recommendations. I don't believe that they should be making. I think that's kind of where we ran into some problems before. I think the membership should be primarily city residents with one or at most two exceptions. I believe that the members do not really need to be artists, or in fact should be maybe a minority in favor of allowing the artists that are interested to compete for grants that we might be giving. That said, I would probably be asking the bylaws to kind of ensure that the arts board members not be allowed to receive the grant funding just because of the conflict of interest that comes aboard. And like I said, it should be an advisory board, not a commission. But that said, it's a great project, and I think there's just so much interconnectedness with our parks, our trails, our public spaces, our open spaces, and our performing arts and recreation program elements that we can really kind of build a great component of arts within our community services program. And I really hope that that's kind of where it ends up, because I think that's where we could really solve some of the issues we had, but beyond that, be even more successful with how we kind of bring and expand arts in Sandy. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to go to Jeremy, and then I'm going to go to Carl. And when I say talk, I just want to say, Kathleen, I agree. I totally agree with that. And I think we have a lot of priorities in our city right now. And with staff, time and allocation and everything, I also have tended to think that this is something that I'd hate to see us spending too much staff resources and time on. And not because it's not important, it's just we have so much on our priority list right now. And yeah, so there's a lot there that I really agree with. As far as limiting members on the committee, I totally think we need to lean in on, City of Sandy residents over outside. That said, I think we also need, and same with the art thing, totally get that point that you're making there. I just think that we need to be a little careful because it's just, as I know, as we all know, it's so darn hard sometimes to get people on these committees. But, maybe some of that is our efforts in recruiting too. So with that, Jeremy, and then I saw, I'm sorry, Carl, it's just you've spoken so much. Lori's hand went up, so I'm going to go Jeremy, Lori, and then Carl.
Yeah, I was just going to ask staff, where other cities, I know, Jordan, you came from Lake Oswego, where is the art commission or committee, whatever we want to call it? It doesn't really matter, on that part of it, what you call it, but where does that sit on staff? Who in Lake Oswego would have been that support staff, or other cities, that you might have known of, would have supported that in there? Because sometimes some of our committees should be supported not by a department that was there, but maybe by some administrative staff like the city manager, assistant city managers, and those type of things. But just wanted to hear what other examples of that would have been.
Well, cities do it in different ways. Lake Oswego had a Arts Foundation, which started off as an advisory board and then spun off once they started getting to the point of needing to raise, funds, and they saw more value in becoming a nonprofit that then could run programs on behalf of the city. So they had a contract with the city, and that contract, they had a similar situation where, I had a role in it, but also our Parks and Recreation Department had a role in it. So it didn't really live anywhere in particular. Other cities have a department like Community Services that have a staff member that manage, the arts program or that relationship with an advisory board or a foundation. And then other cities kind of, do what we do. Maybe it's assigned to a member of the city management or administrative staff. So kind of depends on where your staff resources are, who might have that capacity, who has those skills to work with members of the community and work with stakeholders that are interested in art. But it's not something that cities have traditionally done for many, many years, right? It's sort of a newer, I would say. I mean, murals and things like that have existed, but actually having a full-scale arts program, it's one of those orphan programs that doesn't naturally fit anywhere. We don't have an arts expert on staff. And so you look for skills that who can work with members of the community, who can, help, facilitate between the city council and staff and the board, who can manage projects, who can help manage their budget. So, that's honestly what we would look for here. I like the suggestion of community services, but as been identified, we're looking at adding another, board to their roster, and they may have big project with the community center and the pool and things coming up, and have been sort of in this COVID status, and the program was by ordinance set up to be in the city manager's office or assigned by the city manager's office. And as we talked about a couple of years ago, that was an intern. And a lot of staff time does go in just setting up a board, right? We've been through this with bylaws and roles and responsibilities. What are we going to do? What are we going to start with? And that's important. That stuff, helps them kind of understand the path forward and what their roles are and how they're going to be effective as a group. And so, they did kind of flounder there for a little bit until we found a more permanent, staff. And I say permanent, even though I told Tyler it would be temporary until we can identify someone else. So I do appreciate the comments. I mean, this is one of those things where I think there's great opportunity for art in Sandy. I think the community is ready for it to take the kind of next step. I think what the Arts Commission has done in terms of projects with the restoration of the murals and the inventory has been great. I do worry about where this fits on the council priorities. So I'm interested in hearing the balance of the council, where this might fit in terms of your goals and priorities, and how we can make sure that we don't find ourselves in a similar situation down the road. I want to make sure that whatever we do, that we set this commission or this board up for success, and so we can really accomplish some great art in Sandy. So sorry for the longer comments than we just did.
That's great. Thank you, Jordan. Lori.
So I really actually, I feel this, whether you want to call it a commission or a board, it makes zero difference to me, is very important. And I think it's very important to the community, and here's why. So for those of you who don't know, the Arts Commission was very independent and very proactive in the community last year when they existed. So I look at the chalk art program that they did and the turnout that they had for that and how wonderful that was for participation, for people to do all ages got involved in that. You know, the way that the mural situation was handled, I still really have struggled with the way that some people were treated and things that happened. We lost some really valuable people on that commission as a result. Some people who were very proactive in fundraising, finding funds on their own, and being independent. And it's very unfortunate the way that all went down. But I feel when we look at the community campus and when we look at the community, there was something else I had in my head, but you know, the Parks Master Plan. Yeah, the Arts Commission wanted to be very active and participate with the Parks Advisory Board in doing some co-working together. And I think that's a brilliant idea. I mean, art is not just murals and sculptures. It's layouts. There's a lot of things that go into that. And so when I look at both the community campus and you know, the parks, I think that an Arts Commission or an arts board has a lot of value. And you know, maybe they don't need to meet every month or however that is, but I think they're very valuable, and I think they bring a lot to the table with some of the projects and programs that we're looking at.
I'm going to go to Carl, and then I saw your hand up, Don.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. I guess I'm being told that I need to keep my comments short, so I will.
Oh, I didn't. If you took that from what I said, Carl, I apologize.
Okay.
I did not mean it to come across that way.
Okay, I will negate that. I ditto with what Lori has said. I think there's really a crucial point of momentum here that we established up until about October when everything kind of fell apart. I felt like when I made these exit interviews with all the different councilors that resigned, there was a lot of concern about how the city did not support the Art Commission. And so many of the comments that were made by some of the citizens, and I fit into this one, I'm not trying to point fingers, so a lot of this is my fault too. We just didn't support the commission. That's what the exit interviews said to me, was they could have used a lot more support, and they felt really abandoned. Also, there's a lot of folks who are looking at this next set of interviews and sitting in those seats and wondering, is that going to happen again? So I think that there is a need to be able to reestablish some kind of support for it, make sure that we don't have the kind of concern that some of the exiting commissioners have that would be brought on with the new commissioners. And then also, I do believe that because of the inertia that was built, the inventories, the repairs of certain murals, we didn't finish all the mural repairs and protection, but there's a number of things that should be continued on. I think that would be really lost. We felt that when we were looking, for example, at the mural on the side of the Ace Hardware store, Roger Cook's mural, there was some stuff that we just lost. We had to go almost from scratch because of the lack of attention for it. And it was just wonderful that we happened to have some folks who were trained and skilled in that area that were able to save that from going into obliteration, maybe, at least portions of it. So I think I'm not as excited about whether it's a commission or committee as I am excited about seeing that it goes forward. I'm a little disappointed here. I think that the council last said that they would support an arts master plan. I'm not sure that the timing on that was ever decided. I think that could be really talked about as we go through time by the current council. But I think also that the point that Lori made about incorporating the art issues within all of our plans really hasn't been done that well up to this point. And I would like to see that continue. And I think an art committee, commission, whichever that would be a wonderful way to keep that going. And I do think there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of art folks within our community that would love to sit in there and be participating with the caveats of this. And then finally, I think I like the idea of going to the community services as a possibility for a staff liaison. Again, I'm not trying to diss Travis, or Tyler, I mean, because I think he provided a very strong support system. I just wonder how the timing of his job description is going to allow him to be able to keep on going that route with all things that are coming up, especially the next 3 months worth of budget time. Thanks.
Thank you. Don.
Thanks. I'll start with a couple of the ends, and then we'll kind of justify it. I would propose and support maybe a 3-month pause in filling these positions for a few reasons. And with full respect to the gentleman from Lincoln and Mr. Exner, the concern I have is one that Kathleen kind of echoed. It's really that we have a lot of competing priorities. The new council, we're just still trying to get our feet on the ground. And if we were having this conversation even 2 or 3 months from now, I feel like my approach to it would be very different. Whereas right now, I think I'm still reeling. But some observations. I'm very appreciative of the visual arts part that has been worked on. I will point out that from the charter, it includes music, all performing arts, which I would include theater, dance, and so forth, right? And everything I've heard so far has been very physical, visual art focused. The second thing, which Carl, you mentioned too, I think, which is great, is that making sure that art becomes an integral part of every plan. And we're looking at such a major, sweeping, visionary plan when we start talking about the community center and that street that runs, why did I just forget the street? You know, the one in front of the pool and the grade school there. Thank you, Pleasant Street. As we start to re-envision that whole part, art needs to be front and center throughout that. So when I suggest a pause, it's not because I'm not supportive. I'd like to see it rebooted and chartered with this very integrated approach to that whole vision and lifestyle that we're, I think, getting ready to propose or hope that we're putting together in the next year or two. And I think that covers it. Oh, one other point. I propose that we really do a celebration. We're coming out of COVID. We need to celebrate, talked about maybe celebrating Sandy's history and Sandy's past. Having the arts integrally tied to that sort of promotion, that could be a year or two-year-long effort, I think could be a really powerful thing. So I think if we wait, we maybe give some perspective, board members, commission members, whatever, belief that we're serious about this, and maybe we'll get the right talent we need to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Rich.
All right. I want to start out by saying I really echo a lot of what the mayor and Kathleen had to say. I think right now there's a lot of stuff on our plates, and not just ours, but staff's too. And I think that's even more so for them to keep that in mind. With that being said, though, I'm not really sure what a pause or a wait would necessarily have to do with anything. There is a demand. It's super obvious in a lot of the stuff that we've seen for that in this city. I would have to say I would propose it to be more of a board than a commission, and to me that would allow, since we're elected, that we're I believe more accountable to the citizens than a board or a commission would be, and therefore we're always trying to get the engagement from people. Perhaps this would be an avenue to get that as well. And then also, as leaders, it should be our decision, and we should be accountable for those actions or those decisions as well. And I think that's just a good way to do it, and provide that buffer, that support, I guess, Carl, that you said was lacking before. I think it would be much better with a board, because ultimately the decision would rest on us, and we would have to support that decision whichever way it went, most likely, or at least justify why not. I also think, though, that there's going to be it's not like if we vote on this tonight that tomorrow there's going to be a board. So I just, if we waited 3 months, that's fine. If we may, but I also do think it's important, since there is so much on the plate, that we at least start the process moving forward tonight, and then that will allow us to incorporate those ideas that come from that, develop a board that can develop those ideas that is already in place. It can provide us those ideas for these plans that are going to be rolling out. It's just my thoughts on that.
Perfect. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate that. We're going to go to Jeremy and then Carl.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan, for answering the question earlier. I didn't comment on the rest of the parts of it. Board commission, I think probably a board is a better place to be, either one. As far as the pause goes, I think there's going to be a natural pause in it. And I appreciate Rich's comments there, and everybody's comments, really. But he spoke last, so I appreciate his comments on that. I think my history with this, when it first was approached to me, was, my thought was, I am the last artistic person ever, and to appreciate art is where they say the eye of the beholder or whatever. And I mean, I can look at something like, that's cool or not, you know, I'm the wrong guy to be judging art. But I do respect it. And I think I've respected it a lot more since some of the ideas of what I've learned about being on council here and looking at other communities, and then identifying that, going, oh, we have that, and then seeing that. So I think there's a huge value to that. I think you're right, Kathleen, Mayor, everyone, and we are tasked with a lot of things. And it kind of goes back to some of the other things I brought up over the years as well, is trying to focus on some of that. And it's really hard, especially with the new council coming in, because we all have ideas and excitement, and, you know, coming out of goal setting, we're all super excited, but there is that reality of things. We are still a small city. When we talk about Lake Oswego, they have a lot of staff, a lot of supporting staff, and a lot of supporting staff. And that's just the nature of Lake Oswego or other larger populated sized cities than we have. And so there is that toll on it, but there is a huge value in having that. So whether we call it a pause or not, I think we also have our budgeting cycle that's coming up. And so I do agree that we've already done a lot of work already, and we don't need to reinvent a lot of that stuff. And I appreciate the staff members that have been doing that already. And so it's not like we just toss that out the window. We use that when we do go forward. I don't know if we need, you know, we can be, what that board looks like and how it reacts doesn't necessarily need to start off at the same speed as it was finishing off of last year. It needs to ramp up, and there's people involved and that type of thing. But at least having it there and ready to go, I think there will be a 3 or 4 month period, just because it's, believe me, when we started the Economic Development Committee board, whatever we want to call it, there's just a lot of the ramp up pieces of it. Yes, staff time, as well as figuring out logistics of that. So, but I think we'll also come through a budgetary process too. And if that's our goal, then we're going to be putting that funding towards that as well, in different avenues, in how we build policy, as well as where we put money as a council and as a budget committee. And so there'll be that piece of it. So that's where I kind of stand. I do believe we are a little stretched thin with a lot of things going on right now. And so maybe, I don't want to call it a pause, but just a delay, and that isn't going to hurt too much. But I do believe we need to have that in the future of our city.
Carl, and then I saw your hand, Kathleen. Yep.
Get my mute button to go work. Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts here. One is that if we do a pause, and we decide additionally to go to a board instead of to a commission, I think that would work well with that pause. Give us a chance to evaluate, reorganize, move forward. We only have one art commissioner at this point, and it would be easy to make that happen. If we do decide to go with a selecting people right away, I think it would be much more difficult to figure out how to change from the commission into a board, although I could see some reasons why having people in place could be able to give us advice about how to move that situation from today current to what we want to have in the future. So I got some back and forths in that respect. And then finally, what I want to do is say is we are busy. We have probably too much on our plate. If indeed we feel that art is part of a lot of our planning, and we have nobody that is, and I get the part about everybody here is an advocate of making City of Sandy looking well, and including art. But if you don't have something that's their primary function, it may not be as well incorporated into some of our projects. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at some of our planning already, and I can say it is all that way, but my observation has been that we really haven't incorporated the art situations into some of our planning as we sit. Even though we have had an art commission in place, they've stumbled a lot and fumbled a lot about how to make that happen. I know they made some proposals and they made some outreaches to some of the different planning efforts, but because of their early on knowledge about what's going on with how they do that, it didn't go very well. So to me, a pause has some advantages, but also some advantages. And I personally would vote to go either way on the board versus commission, but I would really strongly recommend that we put together the board together now, call a committee, whatever you want to do, because of the need to keep those loose ends from falling apart. Where's our last little bit of the inventory? Where is the ideas that have been put together about putting into our committees, our planning, that kind of thing? I think that someone somehow needs to keep those things moving forward. So I think we'd lose it if we waited 3 or 4 months.
Thank you,
Just
Carl.
kind of weigh in and say, I like a lot of what I've heard from everybody. I agree with you, Lori, about the need to really incorporate arts into the Parks Master Plan. I think that, that's great direction that we can provide and ensure that that Parks Master Plan does incorporate art into it, into future projects. I like the idea that we are recognizing, I think to some extent, yes, we had some blame certainly because things didn't go well the way it was set up. And I think part of that was because we're trying to do too many things. And when we have way too many things and not enough staff, and it did, we had an intern we were paying an intern to do this before. So we have put a, considerable amount of money and time and effort, because that's what these things take. You can't just have a volunteer board run themselves. It takes care and feeding from staff. And I think one of the reasons it wasn't as successful as we wanted it to be is because we are trying to do too much. And so what I've heard from the people that elected me was that, parks and trails and recreation programs are a key need, what they want to see us be working on and getting progress on. Arts and those kind of things I think are important, but they weren't as up there as high as the other things. So I like the idea, but I also understand that you all past council committed wanted to make a commitment for funding for a Parks Master Plan. So I guess where I see some common ground that maybe we can kind of plow a little bit is that, ensuring that the Parks and Trails Master Plan has an art component into it. When we get to the budget, go ahead and set aside, a certain amount of funding, whatever, I don't know what these things cost, 50, 60,000, whatever it costs. I don't want to say whatever it costs, but let's find that out. But set aside some funding in our budget to develop the parks or the Arts Master Plan. And I love the idea that I think it was Rich or Don mentioned about, again, performing arts, dance, music, all those things. I think like you said, our past commission was very heavy to the visuals. And I think that there's a lot of folks out there that we really could expand that on. but I do want to make sure that we've got our Parks and Trails master plan done. We've got kind of a direction and some sort of closure on what we're doing with the community campus. And then when we have those two things kind of, boxes checked off, then I feel like we can kind of take on that extra bandwidth for really taking the time and the effort and putting in the work that's needed to make this a success. That's, I think, our ultimate goal is let's make sure that we've, let's get these other couple priorities out of the way. And if that's 3 months or 6 months or whatever it takes, then we can kind of really do this right as it should be. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Kathleen. So I'm hearing that a consensus from council that we would like an arts commission, an arts group in the future. That it probably needs to be a board instead of a commission, correct? Hearing board instead of a commission. And to review it in the budgeting process, but to probably take a strategic hold for a couple of months while we progress on a couple of projects, allow new counselors to kind of get their footing, and then revisit the issue under a board, advisory board type format shortly after our budgeting process is complete. How does that sound? Okay, Carl, and then Carl.
I agree with, I can buy into it. I don't agree with it. I feel like we're sitting backwards on some issues. But what I would propose, and I would vote to do what you just described, if we could provide some sort of mitigation to make sure that we have some kind of area or person or group that would be that residual memory of, let's keep the arts portions of those within our plans. We have more than just the trails and parks plan going on here. We've got finishing touches on the Pleasant. We've got the community center, got the downtown walkability, and the list goes quite a bit on. I think that could be something that would need to be left in that way. So I think if we could say some sort of responsibility of an area that would be willing to take that on as that's the resident help. Also to keep some of those things that have loose ends that were left when the board resigned, keep those from disappearing. I would want to see that stuff not lost. There's a lot of inventory that happened. There's a lot of conversation around how to do certain things, protecting the existing art, those kind of things. I would hate to lose those. And a 3 or 4 month, and that would be appropriate, I think, but it would still be a concern of mine that we need to make sure we don't lose that. And if that goes to the public services or under Tyler's responsibility, I just want to make sure we don't lose that.
Tyler?
Yeah, I have, a great deal of that information saved still, Councillor Exner, from when I was liaisoning with the commission. So we'll make sure that absolutely, whether that stays under me or whether that goes to a different department, that the records that I have will get transferred over, and the history that, has led us up to here is fully transferred to the next liaison or department. I think the only other question that I would have, and I don't want to shorten anyone else's comment after what the mayor had sort of recapped, but we didn't touch too much on the residency requirements other than a couple comments at the very beginning. And that was something that got brought up a number of times in earlier discussions. So I just want to circle back to that if we can allocate just a couple minutes of what kind of the temperature is there.
Jeremy, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think we should do like we've done with other boards, that the majority is within inside the city limits, and that 1 or 2 within a close proximity of Sandy be allowed, but no more than that. And that's similar to what we've done with other boards, whether it was Sandy Net or the Economic Development Board, or even with some planning commission right now. So
I think we're all down with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
That's great. We can revisit some of these conversations during the budget process. Sounds like that's where we're headed next. If we do end up going the route, and it sounds like we would go the route of a board, what we'd need to do is repeal the current ordinance that establishes the commission and then replace that with a resolution. And so if the direction from council is to go forward with an advisory board, like a public art advisory board, for example, staff can kind of begin the workings of, repealing the ordinance to, or drafting the ordinance to repeal the existing ordinance, and then working on the resolution to establish the new board.
I believe that's where we're at. Tell me if I'm wrong, council. Okay. Yep.
Great. I appreciate it. Sorry this went a little bit longer than we had originally scheduled, but I think we made some good progress tonight, so thank you.
Hey, man, that's our fault, not yours.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's move on the agenda. Proposed changes to Title 13, the Sandy Municipal Code. Jordan.
Yeah, I'll let Mike just jump right into it. This is an ordinance that would bringing back to the council. We wanted to do this in a work session first to introduce the ordinance and what we're doing here. It's actually one of the recommendations that came out of the wastewater facilities plan, especially in dealing with our inflow and infiltration issues in the collection system. So these changes would basically modernize our code and allow us to perform the work that we need to do on those private laterals, and basically bring us up to sort of the modern standards on how we deal with laterals and our public sewer system. So Mike can pour into the details. You can see in the document we provided, there's the redlining and track changes. So you can see the difference between what currently exists and what's new. And you'll notice that big section that was added about inflow and infiltration.
I was going to go to Mike, but Carl, do you have a hand up? Is that what you're doing? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Just because of this is one of those first projects out of the box with this kind of concern, and then I don't think it's really a concern. I do think it requires at least a little bit of discussion. I actually have had a conversation with Jordan and with David about Councilor Walker is related to Director Mike Walker, and I think that may not have a lot of impact at this particular part, but I think it might not hurt to have Dave make a short exposition on how some of the conflicts of interest might look in terms of real and perceived. And so I thought if Dave would make just a short conversation out that one, that's acceptable to the council, that would be appropriate at this time.
Sure. Yeah, David.
Yeah, I'll I guess kind of cut to the chase here. That for these types of code changes, where you're just talking about regulations that ultimately, as we've talked about before, conflicts of interest really deal only in Oregon with matters of financial benefit or a gain or loss, basically. And so when you have and that's one of those things that's imputed to family members. So, in the future, with respect to now Councilor Walker, and the fact that she has a spouse that's an employee, particularly around budget season, that's going to be one of those things where we're going to need to, have a discussion about potential conflicts of interest, actual conflicts of interest when it comes to particularly budgets around the Public Works Department. Suffice it to say, with things like this that don't involve any, money, certainly no money to the individual employee, as best I can tell, this is really a policy matter. Going to be changes to certainly regulations that Mike and his department would oversee, but don't result in any financial effect on Mike one way or the other. So the bottom line is I look at this as just, not a legal issue from a conflict of interest point of view at all, and really just a matter of perception, but doesn't implicate any legal concerns.
Okay. Is that good, Carl? Good with that, everybody? Okay. All right, cool. Mike, Don, were you waving or saying hands up?
I have a number of comments on the proposed reg. I don't know when you would like them. Just let me know.
Oh, yeah. Let's let Mike give a staff. You said you had comments on what we're about to talk about?
Yeah, the actual proposed changes themselves.
Yeah. Let's let Mike give his staff report, and then we'll take questions and comments from council. All right, Mr. Walker, you're up.
All right. Thank you. As I mentioned in the staff report, this is kind of the outcome of the wastewater facilities plan. Most of the language in the code was written, it looks like most of these ordinances were adopted in 1973 or 1975. And they were probably taken from ordinances that were probably written in 1943 or 1945, so they're pretty old. But basically, this is a result of needing to add some more clarity into how the city can regulate connections to the sewer system that might be a source of inflow or infiltration, and how we can inspect those. And this will be a part of the work that's underway right now with the collection system project, where we found that most agencies have found they can spend a lot of money on I&I reduction in the public right-of-way or in public sewer lines and see very little to no change. And so most of the thinking now is that the focus should be directed on private sewer lines on private property, because those can be a big source of inflow and infiltration. And so the biggest change to the code is this new section 13-14, and that relates to the city's ability to inspect lines on private property and correcting any inflow and infiltration sources. And we will be doing this as part of the collection system work in the future, and so it's necessary that we have the statutory ability to enter onto private property, not invasively with just a camera, and inspect sewer lines and then make repairs to them. The other ones, as I mentioned, the staff report are, kind of, while we had the hood up, let's kind of update some of these other sections, including 1304 and 1306, which are deal more with the water system. But there are a lot of archaic references, and there's a lot of procedures that are, really detail out in excruciating, an excruciating level. And we thought we'd clean those up and make many of these practices align with how we do things now, and kind of get away from some of these very detailed references to like pipe sizes and pipe material and how much earth can be placed over the pipe, and then kind of archaic references like water for steam whistles or motor power purposes. Eliminate those archaic references as well. So that's kind of the summary of it. It's all there in the strike through and additions. And this would just, we were just asking for direction to place this into ordinance form and come back at the first meeting in March, or any time that the council chooses, so that there'd be another opportunity to review it as well. And in the interim, between now and then. And we've had this on the city's website for about 2.5 weeks for public comment, and we haven't received any responses, which is not surprising. This isn't really a fascinating topic, but that's kind of the summary right there.
Thank you, Mike. I know, Don, you had a question?
Some comments on the proposed ordinance. In the interest of time, I think I'll hit the number and the topic and then allow a response in a follow-up meeting, or rather than walk through each one individually right now. In 1304-060, which was deleted, it talks about leaks and who pays for leaks depending on which side of the property line it's found on. And that's, I think, has been a long established practice. I'm just wondering why that paragraph was deleted and didn't look like a replacement paragraph was put in it. General comment, if I go too fast, Jeff, let me know. General comment that the term city, utility staff, city council, and the public works director they may be consistently used, but I think it's worth checking to see if all 4 terms are actually needed in the ordinance. In 13.12.10, now we're down in the sewer section. .b, sorry, scrolling as fast as I can here. We have a clause that basically was struck, which said any application for a sewer connection serving a non-residential use that generates more than 10 equivalent residential units of wastewater flow shall also require the approval of the city council. Just hypothetically, if that was not struck and it's currently in the ordinance, does that mean the city council can prohibit an ordinance that got otherwise approved through the planning commission and everything else, but exceeds the 10 and we don't want to hook them up to the wastewater? food for thought. And like I said, it's struck in the new one. In 1312-040, there's a pipe specification. A lot of it has been struck in terms of the slope of a pipe and things like that. But unfortunately, in the rewrite, it only cites the materials being in the Oregon Plumbing Specialty Code. It doesn't talk about the installation, so I think we've lost the installation of the pipe as part of the code. So yes, you have to comply with the materials, but we should have to comply with the installation as well. In 1312-070, it talks about backfill, but it doesn't talk about compaction, and it doesn't talk about street repair or any other repair. I'm not sure if that's covered somewhere else in the code, but it seems like a gap. So that would be something to look at as well. And I'd love to see the compaction, because I grew up in construction, and this is an area where you cheat. You don't compact, you just throw it back in there, and a year later, you got a big old divot in the street because somebody didn't take care of it right. In 1312-090, under separate conditions, there's a word may, talking about party sewers that are serving more than one household. That said they may be allowed, but it lists the conditions for that. I think that should be a shall, something to consider. Under 1314.20, and under the abatement plans and corrective actions, it mentions that if there's an infiltration that's discovered, the homeowner has 10 days, and I assume that's real days, not calendar days, or not business days, to include the steps and actions. I think in the current economy, you can't get a contractor to call you back in 10 days, so that seems not feasible. So it seems like we need a little more realistic time frame on that. Lastly, there doesn't seem to be anything in the sewage about hooking up from a pumped sewage system or any requirements on pumps or pressures or anything like that. So I don't know if that's a gap or covered somewhere else. So there you go. Real quick review.
Okay, yeah, I took some notes on this. We can definitely, I'll come back with a little response to these. I think these either are in other places in the ordinance where it may not be too clear, but they are referenced elsewhere in the ordinance. But I can come up with a response to this, and then we can make this part of the staff report in March if council wants to, the staff to come back with this in ordinance form.
Good. Okay. Carl.
I hate mute buttons. Don got more than a fair amount of done and caught several of mine. So, and I'll just do the same thing as Don, since it sounds like that's an easy practice. I'm going to 1304-080. It looks like you need permission to turn the water off at the meter or not. I've turned the water off to try to test what's going on and off several times to see where my leaks are. Personally, I never contacted anybody, and I just wonder if that's something that needs to be specifically for the city only to authorize or be noticed. And I may have misunderstood that, but it looked to me like it'd be pretty hard on people doing what I was trying to do, find a leak. Let's see. And then 1304.045. After 12 months, the line is considered to be abandoned. During the recession, we had a lot of houses that were just empty for a long time. I don't know if that was what that was intended to be, but if we do have another recession again, pray that we don't. But if there is a 12-month delay in that being shut off, well, is that what that indicates or not? Just that would be a question in my mind. 12 months is a long time, but certainly we may want to look at some of those houses. And I think that's pretty much it. The rest of it, either Don got or I left what I saw.
Thank you, Carl. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, I think we're probably pretty good. to proceed with getting this on a council agenda, as long as we're addressing some of those questions and comments in the staff report.
Yeah, we could do that. We can work up a response or some references in here and return with that when we come back with the changes in ordinance format.
Sounds good. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and conclude the city council work session and then call a recess for 5 minutes until we kick off our council meeting at 7:10. Thank you. All right. Well, to avoid one of the 11 o'clock ones, let's go ahead and call this Sandy City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome to our city council meeting. Jeff, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Councilor Peitzold,
Here.
Councilor Smallwood,
Here.
Councilor Sheldon,
Here.
Councilor Walker,
Here.
Councilor Exner,
Here.
Councilor Hokinson,
Here.
Mayor Pulliam.
Here. All right. We'll kick off our meeting with an agenda review per normal. We will go into changes to the agenda, and then we'll go into public comment. That will be the time for any members of our community that wish to provide public comment to the council. If a member of the community is logged on tonight and wanting to provide public comment under old business for item 9.2, the proposed building fee increase, we will be having a public hearing for that. So please hold your public comment for that portion of our agenda, but all other items can be covered in our public comment portion. Then we'll go on to our consent agenda, which just has our city council meetings from January 19th. Under old business, we have a letter to two options we're going to be talking about tonight on the letter to the governor on COVID-19 restrictions. We'll then be having that public hearing on the proposed building fee increases. We'll do a report from the city manager. We'll move on to committee and council reports. We will then adjourn. We will then have our urban renewal board meeting immediately following the Sandy City Council meeting. With that, is there any changes to tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move forward to public comment. This is the opportunity to provide testimony during, again, there's an opportunity to provide testimony during the public hearing on the building fee increases later in the agenda. So the council welcomes your comments on other topics at this time. The instructions are on the agenda. If you're participating online, please click the raise hand button and wait to be recognized. If you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Once recognized, you will be provided 3 minutes, and please remember to state your name and address for the record. Jeff, is anyone wanting to do public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I do see one hand right now. It appears to be Mr. Greg Becker. Mr. Becker, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll let you know when there are about 20 seconds remaining. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Greg Becker. I reside at 14585 Bluff Road. I want to comment on the public safety fee again. This fee was imposed on us by the council, stating that the city needed money. My estimate is over $20,000 a month being collected into the general fund. What are we buying? Or what are we paying for with this money? Are we getting new gold-plated coffee makers for each room in the city hall? New cars for department supervisors? Or have we created a slush fund for whatever the city wishes to purchase? Now, I know that those are laughable items, but this question was asked a month ago, and there has been no response, no answers, and no communication. We, your constituents, are concerned that anytime the city needs or wants money, a new fee or increased fees are placed on us. No vote, just forced on us. Does the fee ever stop or reduce back to what it was after the amount of needed money is attained? The answer is pretty evident. No, it doesn't. It continues to be collected to be used as the city deems necessary. Example, the gas fee for road repair. Now, that one was done a few years back, I'll admit, but it was done correctly. It was done by a vote of the citizens of Sandy, and it passed. So I want to get back to the original question. What are the citizens of Sandy when are the citizens of Sandy going to see value in the fee we are paying? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, Mayor, I'll just take another another look at the list for any raised hands. There's a button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, dial *9. And Mayor, I do not see any other raised hands.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right, let's move forward to our consent agenda. If there's any discussion, that's great. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion. Carl, you're not muted. You want to give me that motion?
Sure. I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as it's stated.
Second that.
Who said that?
I didn't, Jeremy.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Councilor Exner and a second from Councilor Peetzold. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 Opposed, a nay or a thumbs down. Motion carries. On to old business. Letter to the governor, COVID-19 restrictions. Staff report, Jordan or Jeff?
Sure, really quick. We have two options that were developed by Councilors Hokanson, Walker, and Smallwood. Staff helped do some initial drafting and circulated that per the council's instructions, trying to weave in the points and topics that the council wished to see in the letter for the governor. So this is the product of that work over the last week. Thank you very much to the councilors for helping out and spearheading this effort. And ultimately, they ended up with these two different options that they wanted to forward to the full council to get this council's input. And I'm sure they can elaborate on the differences, but they really are pretty minor. There's important points, but I think it's only a couple sentences within the letter. So you'll notice that they're 90% the same, except for I think a sentence on the first page of option A, and then on one of the last paragraphs. I think in the last paragraph has a sentence in there. So that's the brief staff report. I'm happy to let one of the counselors who helped draft the letter give more of an overview on the things that are in the letter that they hope to incorporate all the feelings from the full council and getting your input before sending it off. So any counselor want to expand on the differences and maybe between option A and option B? It really has to do with the family gatherings point that is in, I think, option A. Sorry if I have that wrong, but versus option B. And I do have, just to say that wasn't something that was, I think, talked about much at the city council level, so it wasn't included in the initial points, but there wasn't a clear consensus from the three counselors on whether that should be included in a final letter. So hence we ended up with the two different options for your consideration tonight.
All right, counselors, what happened? Who wants to go? Who wants to go first? Let's go Kathleen and then Don.
Yeah, I'll go first and just kind of clarify the differences, and then Don's got some really good comments on kind of some other things that we've learned since we went to that League of the City Day at the Capitol or whatever it was. Basically, the differences that you can kind of see and encapsulate are the first paragraph on the second page for both options. Those are kind of the differences, and the primary difference is just how much focus there is. The one option has more of an inclusion about talking about what we do in our private residences, and kind of implies that we should be be trusted to kind of take care of, our own, whatever the statement is. I'm trying to get the statement here. I've got it highlighted. But so Don and I kind of talked since then a little bit about it, and just, kind of decided that, I think either one of them, we can probably, I can live with either one of them. The one comment I would say is that, I guess I couldn't probably live with, asking for lifting the restrictions completely for, private stuff, for, personal stuff, but I can certainly get behind easing restrictions. So, I think it's just a matter of semantics for the most part. But yeah, it was just kind of that, my initial intent was to focus on what we could do for the businesses. Don wisely kind of pointed out the personal, emotional toll that things take, and what we could do beyond just the businesses, which I can appreciate. And so just whether or not we, how far we go with discussing the private, the personal and private gatherings and things like that, non-business related things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate that. Don.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to work on this. I think we have two very good letters here that basically represent many of the points that we talked about the other day. I did, in option A, I personally wanted to include the part about relaxing family and home restrictions, as well as the lifting the restrictions for businesses, primarily just because of the, it's with any family of any size, 6 and 2 households just becomes very, very limiting. And when you're dealing with grandkids or elderly parents and things, it's a hardship. And it was fine for a while, but we're into an extended period of time. So option A includes that. However, to Kathleen's point, paragraph on page 2, right before the where it starts rather, so that last sentence where it says, we also believe that families can be trusted to gather responsibly. I think we believe that restrictions on family gatherings can be similarly eased would be a more appropriate phrasing there, so that we're not saying just lift them and get rid of them and trust families to do the right thing, but let's just ease, just like we're proposing on the business side. The other point that I'd like to make is that, in that League of Oregon Cities, at the day at the Capitol, the governor spoke at the end of that. And there were two things that I thought were very important that came out of that. The first was, she stated that the numbers are going down, and if all goes well, she'll be able to lift some of these mandates in some of these extreme areas. Maybe we can roll back to the lesser, which would be great. I mean, we can all look forward to that. But this is the part that really encouraged me. She also said, but if they don't, we may have to look at things. So I think there's a window. I think our letter timing is right. We need to, whatever we do, we need to get it out and agree to tonight and not put it off for another 2 weeks. Third point, and then I'll relinquish, is that throughout that day of the Capitol, there were several speakers who spoke, and one of the things they were asked over in a repeating fashion was, how do we communicate to you? How do we get you our information? And consistently, the response was, make it short, make it concise, and make sure it's clear what the issue is in the first part of the letter, because sometimes they said we might get all the way through before we know exactly which side of the issue you land on. And unfortunately, that did not make it into our draft. So regardless of which letter we propose to move forward with, I recommend we take the conclusion in the last 2 sentences, or last 2 paragraphs, really, and repeat that at the beginning, so it's very clear what we're asking, where our position is, and then we can go on. So I think it's a minor edit. And if we get to the point of actually doing it, I can read it that way, or someone else can, and we can put it into the record.
So
that's it.
Let me just I'll try to make this as easy as we can. So first, is there any objections to moving to Dawn's last point of moving kind of that last, some of the language in the last part of the letter up towards the beginning? Is everybody good with that? Okay. All right. So then is there, and maybe I heard it wrong, so please feel free to correct me, but is there anybody have a problem with kind of the compromise that Dawn just kind of spelled out, that it sounds like Kim and Kathleen have been able to discuss offline on the last part of that bottom paragraph there concerning, you know, what's going on in personal homes? Is that a compromise that we can all live with?
Kind of asking for easing of restrictions in the home.
Instead of
Yeah, I can read it again if you'd like.
Please go.
Hold
on. Before you do, Jeff, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just thought for clarity's sake, what I think the council is talking about right now is editing option A. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
We're working off of A, yes. Okay, Don, please.
So the paragraph that would change would be that we urge you to modify paragraph on the page 2, right, Jeff? And
Correct.
the last sentence would read, we also believe that restrictions on family gatherings can be similarly eased while employing proper safety measures and precautions.
So I just want to be clear. I'm for the way it's currently written, but I'm willing to come to a compromise to get a unanimous vote on the letter. Lori.
Yeah, so this 2-letter was my idea, so you can throw stones at me if you so choose. I just didn't want to kind of where things were left last week. I just didn't want to put any more staff time on redrafting, and felt it was more appropriate for this body to just decide how they wanted the letter to go and to move forward that way.
Okay. Is everybody good with ease though? Ease restrictions? Okay. All right, cool. So then I noticed though, there seems to be a little bit, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but there seemed to be a little bit of a difference of opinion on kind of how we were asking the governor on the top portion of option A and B. Feels like one letter was kind of saying, please, please literally shift your guidelines and restrictions. And the other letter said, please ease those restrictions. Is there, can you guys maybe provide color to, why we weren't able to come up with one there to help kind of guide the discussion?
I'm not sure. I think the wording, like I said, everything is pretty much the same except for that first paragraph on the second. The only other difference is there is one line in the middle of the first page where it says, it just talks to the extended families, something about this, the inability of extended families to gather and interact with has also contributed to considerable emotional pain, and leaving that in option A is fine. But other than that, the difference is just in that first paragraph of the second page, and they're fairly close. I'm not, other than.
Okay, so maybe so Kathleen, just to be clear then, we're all good with this letter then, with the changes we just discussed.
I am anyway, yeah. I mean,
okay.
Hopefully others are.
Jeff, Carl, and then Jeff.
We're still on A, right? It's not B that we're.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. I think one of the things I was really concerned about was families as well when we talked about it last time. So I am very much an advocate of A, as we've changed those last little bit on the very end. So, yep.
Okay, Jeff.
And my question was just to clarify, in terms of taking the last 2 paragraphs and putting them up toward the front, is that meant to, are we then repeating them basically at the end, or are we just cutting and pasting essentially? I don't know, Councilor Hokanson, I don't know if you had a.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at it too. And think
Is that okay, Mayor? I'm sorry, I was waiting for the mayor's nod.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
So,
yeah.
The thought there was basically, repeat it so that you state what you're going to lay out, and then of course lay it out and then repeat it at the end. So I was thinking that the last two sentences on the top of page 2, something like, in areas currently identified as extreme risk, which includes Sandy, we believe it is possible for businesses to reopen in a safe manner using methods, blah, 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 blah. We also believe, and then the sentence that I just read. I think that would be a good start to the letter, and then you could go straight into the existing paragraph 1, because that way you're laying out your position and what you're asking for, and then we've either got a reader or we don't at that point.
Wait, so you want to put it in before the Sandy City Council appreciates ... You're muted again, Don.
Sorry, thank you. That was the advice that I took away from that those panels on Thursday from the state.
Yeah, I'm all for getting to the point. I guess I worry about kind of not starting nice. You know, I tend to like to at least try to start with a compliment of some, you know, some kind of understanding consensus that we can have together. And, you know, we appreciate, you know, the COVID-19, and then maybe jump to it straight in the second paragraph. Jeremy and then Kathleen.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Don. I do, but I also get the thing about it being short, and you know, my time on the council and other management things. It's keeping this as short and to the point, and sometimes just the idea of having it repeated, I think, is good to keep the point there, but can also add to the length that sometimes. And I do see what you're saying, Stan. You know, coming across, you know, a little play at the beginning. I don't think it's not unpolite at all by any means, but I don't know if I'd, you know, I like the idea of a one-pager, but we're on to 2 pages, so it's kind of like a resume. When you're reviewing resumes, the longer they are, the more you don't read it, or, you know, just you need to get to the point of that. So I could give or take it, but that's some thoughts I had.
I think we're pretty close. Oh, Kathleen, go. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what you just said. I like the idea of keeping the introductory paragraph, and then just, you know, stick in a couple sentences there before the second paragraph, you know, kind of, you know, what they told us, and what I know to be true when you're writing stuff is, you know, tell them what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you said, you know, and that's, so, you know, just adding a couple little introductory, you know, sentences, and you can kind of edit that down or take it out of the end a little bit more. But just like I said, kind of, you know, they said don't bury the lead. So in that second paragraph, we should be kind of just, you know, asking for what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, you feel like you have an idea what we want to do here?
I think so. I'm sorry, it looks like there's further. I did have a couple of questions just about the signatures and how we logistically, but it sounds like there may be more discussion.
Well, okay, Don, go ahead and then come back.
I was just going to suggest if we go with paragraph 2, which sounds good, I like that. I think you just zap the word however in that paragraph, what would become paragraph 3, and then it will read nicely.
Agreed. Yeah.
So you have.
Agreed. All right. So with that, why don't we entertain a motion that we adopt letter option A with Don? Why don't you make this motion?
Yeah, thanks, man. Do I need to read it all at this point? Or can we just
I think you could just say adopt option A with, you know, whatever changes that, you know, we just made that you kind of want.
All right.
Yeah.
So I move that we adopt option A with the changes that we've talked about, to include pulling the summary sentences into paragraph 2, minor editing modification of removing of however in paragraph 3, and the change of the paragraph 5 so that the last sentence says, we also believe that restrictions on family gatherings can be similarly eased while employing proper safety measures and precautions.
It looks like Counselor Smallwood second. So we have a motion on the floor by Counselor Hokinson. They're getting better. Second by Counselor Smallwood. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up. Aye.
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 Opposed, nay or a thumbs down. Motion carries. Thank you to all the members of the committee. Thank you to all counselors for coming into this with an open mind and a good discussion. Thank you to Jeff and Jordan and all of our staff that helped work on this process and this letter. I really appreciate it, everybody. With that, let's go ahead and go to our.
Jeff, sorry,
Yeah.
Jeff had another question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry, Mayor. So there are signature lines for, I think it's fantastic that we have a unanimous vote. There are 7 signature lines. Was that the council's intention? I think that's what Malala did.
It'd be great.
And if that's, yeah, okay. I know that time is of the essence, so I will work with all of you to make sure we get that done.
That's the only hang up I thought of.
Yeah.
But yeah, enjoy. All right, cool. All right, with that, let's, so we're about to have a virtual public hearing. Please note there is an opportunity to offer public testimony that will occur shortly after the staff report concludes. When the public testimony period begins, if you'd like to participate if you're participating online, click the raise hand button at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. If you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. With that, I will open this public hearing, resolution 2021-01 at 7:37. I will call for the staff report. Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be relatively brief on this one as we've done a little bit of a summary on this back in November. So I'll just cut to the chase. It's been a number of years, almost 7, since we've had any increases to the building fee schedule. And a number of the fees that we're currently charging either do not cover the cost for us to provide the service or are really just low compared to other cities within our area. And so I worked with Development Services Director Kelly O'Neill to help identify where some of those changes needed to be, and made these proposed changes. The State of Oregon Building Code Division does require that we notice them 45 days in advance of the public hearing that we're having this evening. Those steps have been taken. There was a formal notice published on their website, which is linked in the staff report for your convenience. We allowed written comments to be submitted through January 8th, and we did not receive any written comments either for or against these proposed fee increases. And then since January 8th, we have also not received any comments regarding these proposed increases. We did receive one question, which was easily answered, but again, no comments for or against. And so ultimately, we are just trying to make sure that the services that we provide we're paid appropriately for the services that we provide to ensure that the building department stays stable going forward. That's one of the only department within the general fund that doesn't receive a general fund subsidy. It's completely self-sufficient, and so ensuring that the revenue they collect to pay for their expenditures remains stable is the ultimate goal, and have a nice contingency in that fund to weather any downturns in the future. We were very fortunate in the last recession not to have to lay off staff because we had adequate reserves, and so that's definitely the intent going forward with this department.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, thank you. We will move on to public testimony guidelines. So please try to avoid repetition. If someone else has already expressed the same thoughts, it is sufficient to state that you agree with the statements of a previous speaker, even if that's all you say. So if you're participating online, again, click the raise hand button at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. If you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. I'm now calling for any testimony on the proposal. Please remember to state your name, mailing address for the record, and you'll be provided 3 minutes.
Okay, Mayor, I'll just wait a moment for any raised hands. And Mayor, I do not see any raised hands.
All right, Tyler, would you like to provide a conclusion to your staff report?
Ultimately, we are just looking to increase these select building fees to cover the cost of service. It's been a number of years since there has been an increase, and this is just one of those required steps sometimes to make sure that we remain in a position to continue offering the services that we provide.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. Is there any questions for Tyler at this time before we want to close the public hearing? All right, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing on fee increases for building permits.
And it looks like there's a motion from Councilor Walker, a second by Councilor Sheldon to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, a nay or a thumbs down. All right, hearing is closed. I will now, I'm now closing this public hearing at 7:41. All right, discussion from council. Councilor Exner.
Really short. I just want to correct the statement that Tyler did. We, as a council, have said several times we want to make small, often increases in all of our accounts as much as we can, because it's much easier for people to understand that and incorporate that in their budgets than long-term, large increases, which surprises everybody and creates a fair amount of stress that way. So to me, this is one of those things that does that. I don't think it's been too very long since we've increased the planning fees. And certainly these are not very large increases. And so I'm really in favor of it.
All right, Councilor Sheldon and then Pete Sold.
Yeah, mimic what Carl just said. The other thing is I feel like, a lot of us ran that development and growth needs to pay for itself, and these very minimal fees are a step in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Pete Sold.
Yeah, this is just part of the history of 10 years ago. They tried to increase the fees during the downturn that was just astronomical at one time. And the council said, no way, and to do it in small incremental amounts, which then had a effect on across the city, which I think was a good thing. It opened our eyes to a lot of these things. And then this is that process. So 10 years later, here we are doing it in a small incremental amounts that I think are very palatable and to help keep up with inflation and those things. So I'm glad it's here, and we'll be supporting it.
Thank you, sir. I saw there's a hand from Councilor Hawkinson, but I'd love some motions coming up too. Councilor Hawkinson. Oh, man, I'm gonna get
It's all
it.
right. We'll see. We'll see. It's all right. It's all good. Hey, no, just a quick question. So moving forward, is this going to be an annual or every 2 years? What's the plan for revisiting these fees?
That's a great question. We have moved to a much more annual type process. It's not always 12 months on the nose, but we've moved to a much more annual process for most of our other fees. These increases would have been included last month when we did, or rather December when we did the last round of increases for the other departments, but we missed that 45-day cutoff window by a day. So that kind of kicked us out to this less than ideal February 1st meeting. But with that said, I think that going forward, this would again be at the very least every 2 years, more than likely probably annually, just like the rest of the departments that we're doing. So we can just incorporate CPI to our fee schedule like we've been trying to work on for the last couple of years.
All right, is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Exner.
You're muted. Say it all again.
I'm mumbling. Okay, I move that we approve resolution 2021 I forget the number already. 1, there it is, and as stated.
Great. Is there a second? Second from Councilor Smallwood. Motion from Councilor Exner, second from Councilor Smallwood. To adopt the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up. Aye.
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 Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. All right, motion carries.
Thank
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Report from the city manager, Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and start with the response to Mr. Becker's public comment. You know, I think we sort of answered this a month ago that evening, and I think one of the things we can look at is maybe doing a portion on the agenda as an opportunity to respond to public comment, maybe the next meeting, if we do get questions like that. So there's actually a time where people can expect to hear a report out. That's one option. But we did touch on it that we've hired 2 new officers with the public safety fee, as the fee was intended for. Officers Boyes and Officer Ling are now actually passed the academy. They passed with flying colors and on the street doing their in-field training. We also did the promotions to reinstate the lieutenant positions. Lieutenant Lundry is in that position now. So we are putting the public safety fee to good use. I think Mr. Becker was close to the amount that we collect per month. I think it's a little over $20,000 a month. We still have a couple of vacancies in the police department because of retirement and the departure of one of the officers, but we have a couple offers that are out, and a couple, or I should say a couple candidates that we've interviewed and are in background and medical examination phase. So looking forward to having the department fully staffed. Moving on, I wanted to thank the council for the tour and the goal setting last week. That was a busy week. I think it was a great end to the week, though. It was the weather held out for us and we got to see some great stuff. I wish we had more time, but it was good to be in person with folks, distance, of course, and outside. But I think that was very effective. And as I said on the tour, if any counselors would like, you know, another chance to see it, and maybe with staff members, we're happy to always tour facilities with council members.
Jordan, I was going to put this in my report, but since you're on it, I don't know about the other counselors, but especially with some new counselors, I'd love to get back out to Fern Hill or whatever, and you know, do a walk around, lunch, or we can skip the lunch. I don't care, but just something. I think being over at Roslyn at that property, then in short order of, you know, in the next 30 days or so, 40 days, get back out there so that we can kind of connect it in our heads. I would really like to see us do that if other counselors are interested in doing that.
Yeah, we can definitely set that up, and we have you know, a connection there with the Clean Water Services. His name's escaping me now, but he was at the Watershed Council meeting and he's happy to help out. So we can do another 2-hour tour out there. That's a good idea. Our next goal setting is February 13th. So Saturday, the 13th, it will be at 10 a.m. And virtually, again, with Sarah Wilson. So looking forward to that. There'll be a lot to do in 3 hours. I'm sure there might be some carryover to a future council meeting. I'm sorry, but I think that it's been a lot of good work on the visioning, and I'm looking forward to seeing that and you guys talking about setting goals. We've been starting to work on our WIFIA application. There's a lot of work on that thing. We had our first kind of team meeting today, just getting started, but there will be a lot of work and consultant work and staff work that goes into that application. But we're thrilled that we've been invited to apply. There's a lot of steps still to go. And there's I think a training on the 10th that the team has to attend to learn more about that application process. A quick update on 362nd and Bell. I think I sent around on Friday the latest alignment that reflects the property owner's input and the council's input on the preferred alignment for 362nd, extending northward a little bit further to connect with the proposed extension of Bell. So you have that. You know, feel free to send your reactions, but we're moving forward with, you know, the conversations about right of way and continuing engineering design on that important road project. And then the last item is sort of in the spirit of our work session this morning wasn't that long ago, earlier this evening on the Arts Commission. Greg Brewster from Sandy Net reached out recently about restarting the Sandy Net Advisory Board, something that he's, I think, been in conversations with the counselor, and especially Counselor Pietzold, with over the last couple of years. That board has not been meeting on a regular basis, but still exists. It was established by resolution as one of our advisory boards. It's one of those boards that does need some cleanup work. It's one of the efforts that we've been doing over the last year is establishing terms and, what seat is on what term, and sort of those membership responsibilities and the roles and bylaws. But he is looking to get that reestablished, and I kind of wanted to touch base with the council tonight to see if this is a future work session item, or if you are comfortable with us starting a recruitment process and kind of coming back with similar to what we did with the other advisory boards. More of the membership and terms, who would be filled in what position, but we would of course go through the whole recruitment and interviewing process. With the city council to get that established. Would reach out to former Sandy Net advisory board members to see if they would be interested in serving. But we're happy, to take this to a work session first to talk it through more with the council. I just wanted to get temperature on if you want us to. Yep.
Jeremy, make your case.
Well, yeah. So the reason why it kind of got put on pause years ago is when Kim had eliminated all the boards and then reappointed boards back at one time. And that one got paused as Joe had announced he was leaving. And then they were looking at the transition from Joe to his replacement, which ended up being Greg, and then Greg coming on, having that new learning curve of taking over the department and running that. In that process, though, like we've talked about before, there's a toll on staff to have that. In this one, that would be the position that would be in charge of it from the staffing point of view. So, as he was getting his feet underneath him, that had been on pause and kind of was running its course from the broadband internet master plan that we had for Sandy Net, starting way back when Don was part of it as well, and where we got our feet wet in the city side of things. And so, but that has come up to where we've kind of run its course and needs some continuous direction in that. So I would propose that we start there as it was before, recruit the people, and the same things that were on it from before was already there, and to go forward. Not necessarily as a controversial sometimes as what art may be by the beholder, but maybe that's my own opinion. So anyways, I would recommend that we continue doing that, and legwork has already been in place to just implement board members that would be interviewed and brought back to the council for approval of those things, similar to parks and transit and library and others.
I'm good with all that. Is there any objections from council on that? So everybody knows, I haven't made my committee assignments yet. I'm going to announce that here at the end, but I'm pretty sure Jeremy would get it. Yeah. Councilor Hokanson, and then Councilor Walker.
So the question, I guess, before we start recruiting people to the board is, do we have to, does 2.22 need to get modified to reflect the changing purposes, or are those purposes still the same? And if they're the same, then I'd say go ahead and recruit. If we need to change it, I think we bring that back to the work session first, tweak it, and then recruit.
I'm sorry, the 2.24, what are we?
Chapter 2.22, the Sandy Net Board. It's under Jordan's page for administration. I don't know, administration and personnel.
Well, we'll have to check that on the website. I believe, Mayor, I'm sorry. I should have asked you to recognize me.
Yeah, you're good, Jeff. Go ahead.
So Councilor Hokanson, I actually believe that chapter of the municipal code was repealed, so it shouldn't be there anymore. I'll need to check that tomorrow morning.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, there is a link to on the city's website, and it does reflect the fact that that's now incorporated into Resolution 2018-14. That was part of that process that was referred to earlier under Kim Yamashita's direction.
Councillor Walker, or are you good with that, Councillor Hokinson? Okay. Okay. Councillor Walker.
Kudos to Don for knowing his code, though. I'm impressed. You had me. I thought I knew it pretty well, but that's great. No, I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's important to kind of restart that effort. I think one suggestion I would make is, and what I saw from the Arts Commission, it's really important for the City Council to kind of line out what the goals, the goals are for kind of Sandy Net in the long term, and some of the sideboards for that, to kind of just provide as helpful direction to the board. And I don't know if that was in place before. I don't know much about, how they operated or how it went. So I hope that we're able to do that as part of this. But yeah, I think it's just in talking to the things we talked about when we were on our little tour there in the bunker, I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Great. All right, cool, Jordan.
Great, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Exner. Yeah.
I was just going to say ditto. I think it's important to keep going. It's a wonderful system for the city, and I think it needs to be kept that way. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's going to be very important, especially with the new administration in DC, with the new FCC chair, is the amount of grants and opportunities that our city will be able to be, as we are one of the leading cities, even in the size of 12,000 people, we're always compared to the hundreds to 200 size cities out there. So it's, getting our share of maybe some free money out there coming forward in the next 4 years is an opportunity we don't want to miss. So.
Thank you. All right, Jordan, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Good report, sir. Thank you very much. All right, let's go committee and council reports. Councillor Sheldon.
I really don't have much, especially since I would like to echo, I actually written it down, if there was a time and a place to address the community issues that came up. So I totally agree with Jordan that there should possibly be a mechanism that we can address those so that they feel heard and understood. So that's really all I had.
Great, thank you. Councillor Exner.
A couple things, like a couple of the other councils, I think Hokinson and Walker both, I thought I saw their names on the LLC City Day. I went and participated in about half of it. I got wrapped away in some client work, but towards the end there, so I missed the governor. But I did listen to a lot of the different conversations, and I was pretty impressed by it, especially in the one with Speaker
Kotek.
Well, not Kotek, the other one of the Senate. Senate. Anyway, the Senate.
Senate President Courtney.
Courtney, there it is. My goodness, I must be getting tired. He had talked about how councils could impact legislators with this new virtual process that we seem to be on. And that, first off, it's very difficult to talk in the hallways and that kind of stuff, with capturing people and kind of leveraging any kind of conversation with them. So that just doesn't happen anymore because everybody's at their home or in some other remote location. But the way he suggested, and I thought was a great idea, was that if there was something that we wanted to put forward, that we do something in a community, council prospect, where the mayor and as many of the council members as possible got on a virtual meeting with our if it's a committee, if it's a legislator, whatever it might be. And he suggested that would be a great way to influence and to send our message. And so I would suggest that might be something we think about when we get to doing some of the things we really want to make sure we get across to our representatives. So that was something I was really impressed by. And if the others want to say other things too, I won't go too very far into that. I appreciate Jordan's conversation about establishing some sort of comment. I do. I've seen so many comments coming through my inbox, as well as the messages from phone calls. If we could figure out a way to comment on those things, as well as someone like we had this evening, I think that's really good. Question, what's the status of our sidewalk? Are we anywhere closer, or are we still doing a lot of the engineering, and have we moved forward on something, anything at all? Or are we on status hold? What's our condition?
I think are you referring to Ten Eyck and Vista?
Yeah, yes, from Ten Eyck to Vista.
Yeah, I think everything is progressing. I haven't heard any major like delays. I mean, it's just taking a long time.
You have.
ODOT's design engineering right away. You know, it's all taking place. ADA sidewalks look good. The ones that were funded by the block grants that we completed just last month. So, but yeah, I can get a more full report for you.
Okay, appreciate it. I'm going to be out of commission all day long tomorrow and maybe some of Wednesday. I have some reconstruction surgery that happens, so we'll be able to do more than just look through a haze of drugs. So it's just a hand thing is all it is. So it's not anything with the brain. So I won't be able to do much in terms of response tomorrow and maybe some of Wednesday. So one last thing is I've been in conversation with the Clackamas watershed and some of the river councils in the Clackamas River, and they are really looking forward to doing some sort of comment on the things that happen in our repairs and increasing any kind of capacity that might be happening. I know that this happened just on Saturday, so I haven't had a chance to talk with them about some of the specifics we heard about. Very impressed by Preston Van Meter's suggestions and comments about capabilities of increasing our capacity. That just greatly improves that. But I do want to say that in that meeting that I had, it's been probably 3 weeks ago, they reiterated they would love to write a letter, do any testimony that we maybe needed to get us forward on getting any monies for improving the projects and getting us ahead of any kind of loans, whatever it might take. They would be very excited about providing that kind of input to us, for us, in whatever capacity that might be. They're very favorably desiring to see us move forward on the plant for obvious reasons. So I want to say again, if either with the Withia application, any kind of in conversations with other places, if we need, they have asked again that if there's any time, any place, they would be willing to make some approval process for that. So, and for that, that's it for me. Oh, excuse me, one last thing. I'm sorry. We have one more candidate, one more seat in the Art Commission. Do we want to just leave that person there, or should we ask them to take
There's no commission to be part of, Carl. So it'd have to be like a reappointment to the board.
Well, that person would be, what's the status of that person?
Well, I think my gut tells me because the commission would no longer exist, we would have to reappoint that individual to the newly created board.
So we would communicate to him that his seat has been discontinued and he's more than happy to apply for the next one when it comes up.
And we would invite him and appreciate him to apply.
Okay, all right.
And I think at this point, just to be clear with him, say that's the council's intent, you're going to have to go through and actually, repeal the ordinance and go through the formality of it. But clearly that's the council's intent at this point.
Okay, all right.
Yep. All right, great. Councilor Walker. Oh, hold on, Tyler. Go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to say I can reach out to Mr. Senek and let him know of the current status and where things are at, so he's not, left wondering where things are. I know he was attending earlier this evening, but I'll make sure to reach out to him later this week.
Great, please do. Thank you. Councilor Walker.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the city staff for putting together the goal setting sessions and Sarah's participation. She was a great facilitator. And also the tour the other day was fabulous. I really enjoyed getting to see everything, kind of the guts and everything. So, and it was wonderful just to be able to kind of, what was so nice about the field trip was just being able to kind of see everybody in person and do a little side conversations and those kind of things that we unfortunately didn't get to do with the goal setting stuff on Zoom. That said, the goal setting, you know, we spent a great 6 hours and we only have like 3 hours left. And I did kind of share with Jordan, I was a little bit nervous because I just felt like I'm kind of, you know, I think Don and I are similar left brain type analyst type people. And the last exercise we had was a little bit much more designed for right brain, kind of, you know, broad and kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall kind of thing. And I just feel nervous that we've only got 3 hours to kind of really get our goals for the next 2 years focused in. And I'm hoping we're going to focus in on them because I don't think we can continue to have, you know, be juggling 64 balls.
Kathleen, not to interrupt, but we're again on the same page. So if we don't, we will find time to get it done because we have a lot. Yes.
So it is kind of daunting, and it will take a little bit of self-discipline from all of us on, you know, kind of going on and on like I know I can do sometimes. But I'm excited to do it, and it's also just, you know, if we can kind of do the prep work that then gets us to the point where that night we do have the ability to kind of focus in on. That might take a little prep work. I did sit through the city day at the Capitol, whatever, and that was always very illuminating to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. It's, you know, I only knew enough to be dangerous, and now I know enough to be a little bit more dangerous probably. But I did appreciate, like what you said, Carl, the helpfulness of having a council testify on something. I think there was, you know, what I was hearing about was a bunch of new bills, housing stuff, growth stuff that really kind of concerns me, honestly. And we need to kind of figure out, you know, how to get involved in that, you know, kind of get in front of it and try to get, you know, have an idea of what our consensus is and then forward that to them while they're starting to kind of, you know, put together the recipes. Let's see, anything else? I also agree with everybody on the public input. I think it's really, I think we'd have to have a feedback loop, and I would appreciate us doing that kind of sooner and not waiting till that, you know, if they kind of testified at the beginning of the meeting, let's not make them sit through the whole meeting before we kind of get back to them. If we can kind of put that feedback loop maybe a little sooner into their public comment process, or at least have some sort of say, we're going to get back to you and it's going to be on an email or whatever it is. Let's just have it as soon as possible for the feedback loop from our public input. I think that's about all I had. It was great to meet Tony and Molly and see what they're doing. And yep, I think yep, I think that was all I had. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Smolin.
Yeah, so I happened to notice this week, Jordan, you're gonna get so sick of me. I'm sorry. There's two large heaps of garbage on as you're going down Reuben Lane. If you look back up to the northeast on the hillside, they're probably 30 yards by 30 yards, and they're probably 20 yards apart. So maybe if we could get code enforcement to go take a look and see what the story is with that. They're large, there's a lot of stuff there. And then secondly, I don't know if any of you guys happen to follow the community pages and are aware that a large RV has been dumped in the Safeway parking lot. Don's shaking his head. So my concern with these is obviously, you know, we don't want to pay to have these removed. They're very expensive, but the community is learning that the way that they solve these trailer problems is to light them on fire. And that is a concern that I have. This particular trailer is parked in front of a very large stand of old trees and in front of the cemetery there. So it's definitely a safety concern that I have. If we start having people dump these trailers and then people start to think that, hey, we'll just go light it on fire and that's how we get it taken care of. So somebody is going to get hurt. So if we can maybe do some collective powwowing on a way that we can maybe address these issues, whether it's partnering with maybe the Safeway property owner or the county somehow to get creative, because I see this as being a continual problem. So
So Jordan, tell me if I'm wrong here. So as far as the one you referenced that was lit on fire, Lori, that is literally, and I'll do it with you. We need to lobby the county, like the
Yeah.
county's got to develop a process similar to what our city has if it's on city property and we take care of it.
Yeah,
The problem with this though, is that it ended up on private property
correct.
with Safeway. So I'm not sure if we do have any levers that we can pull on that other than maybe trying to develop some kind of partnership with Safeway, mutually assured destruction if we don't, right?
Well, and that was kind of maybe what I was wondering is maybe we can contact I don't know if that property is owned by somebody other than Safeway Corporation. If we can maybe do a little legwork on that and see if we can come up with some creative solutions on how to address this so that we don't have public health hazard.
Yeah. Rich, was that a hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if that's something. This does seem to be a weekly topic, and I'm sorry I should have brought it up earlier, but I do think that's a topic that we need to put on a work session or something. We need to be able to have some. I don't know if this is the venue to do it right now, but to have a conversation about that and then start looking at some, even some different ordinances. The county has a chronic nuisance ordinance that kind of compels private businesses to take action. And unfortunately, I think we have to start getting ahead of that. And this has to go to the top of some of those many priorities that we've already discussed tonight. So I think the sooner we could have a work session and start brainstorming these ideas and start looking, and in the meantime, start looking around at best practices that are out there that are already being implemented by other cities and jurisdictions that we can not necessarily have to create a wheel, but figure out the Sandy style for this how we're going to deal with this. So that's my thoughts on that.
Great idea. Thank you, Rich.
Perfect. David.
Just an FYI for the council, the property owner of the property there at Safeway is Brad Picking.
I'm not sure who, I'm not sure who we'd work with, David or Safeway. I know David owns the property, but I don't know.
The chief, I think it may be on, but yeah, it is on private property, but there is, code enforcement considerations too about, derelict property or maybe attractive nuisances or something to that effect. And, I don't know if the property owner or the management of Safeway has reached out to us about it or anything yet, but Chief, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I actually saw that yesterday. Councilor Smallwood, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I saw that yesterday when I wasn't working, but I was just shopping. So I noticed that, of course. It's easy to notice. We'll be reaching out to them tomorrow to, within the next day or two to speak with them about that, the trailer on that property there. So, and I can bring back a report for sure. So.
My cousin Eddie's going to be really upset.
Thanks. That's all I had.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Peetzold.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that last topic is a great topic to deal with because it's more of just the city of Sandy. It's the regional. I had someone reach out to me because they didn't know who else to reach out to. It lives a few miles east of us, but it wasn't part of the city of Sandy. But he got Chuck Thompson involved, the county commissioners, because someone had dumped one off in front of his property out in the country. And the towing companies that used to be able to go tow that found there was no money in it and there's liabilities. And so they won't even tow those away anymore. And so you just can't get rid of them. And then there was one, I don't know if it's still there, but down by Colorado Road out there on 362nd. They had been there for 6-9 months. It may still be there. I just don't travel down that road very often. But in the ditch, it was a very large one. And they're doing it right outside city limits. And so coming into our town is very ugly, but a nuisance as well as a hazard in kids. So I think this is more than just, maybe it's a work committee shop with the county itself, and other cities are dealing with this as well, as there's no way to get rid of these. So they're just dumping them. So it's anyway, thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, Chief.
So just to let all you guys, all the counselors and the mayor know that I'm not sure about the issue at the Safeway parking lot, but many times these folks, and I'm not sure yet because I haven't checked, and we will check this out, but they'll ask permission to park on the property. And a lot of times that's, whether you see that as positive or negative, that's either granted or not granted. sometimes the property owners are like, oh, okay, you can park on the property for a little bit, and then it becomes a long period of time. So we're dealing with those issues as well on this property, the Safeway property. So just so you know that there's that issue as well, that, you know, in turn, it kind of complicates our issue of trying to get this problem resolved, because a lot of times that these folks have permission from these owners to park on the property. So, and that complicates the issue. And it's just, most of the time it's out of the goodness of their heart. They're just trying to help out somebody. But we'll check that out and find out what the issue is with this particular trailer on the property on Safeway.
Going forward, last week was the OBAC, Oregon Broadband Advisory Council, and I'm on that council. I represent the cities of Oregon on that, and I got reelected as vice chair to that committee. In that, we were going lines of a lot of bills that are being, House bills and Senate bills that are being proposed in the legislation at this time. Some of them are scary for our city. So, you know, as they're written, as you know, that some of these will never make it forward, but some of them, the way they're written, need to be advised and rewritten. I spent an hour on the phone today with Jenna Jones. If you know who Jenna is, she's our LOC, one of our LOC representatives for the cities, and making sure that our best interest is as a collective, as a state, the cities in our state are taken care of. And some of them, you know, preemption is always a concern for our cities of not having control over what we can and can't do in our right of ways and being mandated by the state for some of those things. So working through some of that as the process goes forward. Thank you again for staff and Sarah, goal settings, like everyone else has said. I was excited to get through it, but I do think that we'll need some more time, as you know, online is great in this, but maybe we don't get as much accomplished that we would have normally done in sitting down all at once and kind of getting through it. And thank you for the tours. I'm super excited to have the new counselors be able to see our facilities that we've had and the things that we've talked about and will be talking about. I'd really like to see a tour at some point. We used to do one that would start with our clean water and where it comes out of, bubbling out of the ground, and then you know, from there go down to the sewer treatment plant. But we didn't have time for that. But I think it's very good for us to know where our clean water is coming from. Now we have 2 sources or 3 sources, but with Portland. But maybe that in a future one is, we're going to have some more topics around where we get our water and some alignment down bluff and some things that were being forced upon us with the feds. And it'd be good for the rest of the counselors to kind of understand, and, you know, some of the options that will be being laid out in front of us that we need to pick and choose from. But anyways, just enjoy Saturdays, seeing people in person. It's been almost a year since the council has actually been in person. I don't know if I've seen maybe the mayor once, but anybody else on council in person for almost a year. So that's weird. But anyways, it was great seeing you all. Oh, and we have an economic development board on this coming Wednesday. So that's all.
All right, thank you. Couple items for me. One is, since we're talking the RV issue,
Did I get to go?
Oh, did you not get? I'm getting used to
It's okay.
I'm all over you tonight.
He's forgotten me several times too, so don't take it personal.
I'm so sorry. No, actually, Don, I was going to give you the last word and you ruined it. No, go ahead.
All right. Sorry. This way you get the last word, but a few items. First of all, I thought the tour was great. I really appreciate that. And I agree. It was great to see you all. Mostly, sorry, Mr. Laurie. I felt far more connected to what we're doing after that trip. So that was great. I did want to just plug that, just make sure we get something in the record, that my disappointment in that some of the smaller assets in the pool, the toys that have been set up, the things that are still in the water that are degrading, disappointed that they weren't better taken care of. And I'd like to hopefully get those remedied, preserved, regardless of whatever decision we're going to do in the future. We don't need to let things continue to age where we don't have to. On the special shout out to Jeff, I think, for helping craft that letter. He took our very disjointed notes from the last meeting and put out a very nice draft of letters, and then took our subsequent comments and I think did a great job. So well done. I'm really happy that we've got that agreed to, and I look forward, Mayor, to you taking that and building whatever coalition you can to put the pressure on the governor and those other officials to relook at some things. So go for it. Go forth and conquer whatever you need, whatever you can do there for us. The last one is I noticed, and I'm excited for the creation, hopefully soon. I'd like to see if we can't do it soon for that Sandy Aquatic Center Advisory Committee. I mean, we originally talked about it back in December, and just so you know, Grant Hayball and a few others do meet on a regular basis. So without a charter or anything, they're meeting on their own right now. So I think the sooner we can get it formalized, the better. So thanks, everyone.
Right. Thank you. And I agree with all that. We were talking about the RV issue. Senator Chuck Thompson, and you jogged my memory with this, Jeremy, with your story, I know he's drafting a bill to address this issue. So I needed to call him. It's actually on my list tomorrow to follow up on some of our wastewater asks that he's making on our city's behalf that staff got out to him. I wanted to follow up on. So I'll also ask him where he's at, kind of how they're addressing with Clackamas County this RV issue, and try to report back to everybody. Some unfortunate news that many of you probably have already heard on the Mountain Festival that was talked about, that was kind of announced today, is that they're going to have to cancel the Summers event. A lot of people don't quite understand what just a sheer volunteer undertaking, that volunteer undertaking the Mountain Festival is every single year, with a lot of moving parts, from the parade and public facilities with the parade and volunteers and route and participants to vendors to a carnival. There's just a lot of organization that needs to happen for that, and it's done fully volunteer based. And obviously with the uncertainty of COVID and trying to enter into contractual agreements and stuff for that weekend, it's just become a very pretty unattainable thing for them to be able to, have to plan. Plus you want to be able to give people a heads up, and the ability to kind of plan their summers and stuff. So I never thought in my 10 years mayor, I would miss two mountain festivals. It's just really unfortunate, but I know that we'll get that wonderful community tradition back up and going here relatively soon. Thank you to staff for the goal setting. Lots of meetings this last week. I know a tremendous amount of work goes into that, and then into the tour on Saturday. I thought it was incredibly helpful for all of us, every member of council. It was great to see the facilities, great to talk to the staff members in charge of those facilities, even better to have one-off side conversations and they get to know our fellow counselors. I think that was a great opportunity for all of us, and I look forward to kind of wrapping up. Well, I don't know, Kathleen and I might not let us wrap up our goal setting, but I like to see it get towards near of an end here in this next meeting, and kind of see where that all kind of hashes out. I mentioned Fern Hill. Counselors, especially some of the newer ones, or some of you that might not have gone on the tour last time, let's try to make it a priority for all of us. Let's try to find a date that works. This is going to be the largest public infrastructure project in our city's history. We worked really hard to get that green alternatives analysis study done, and it's looking very positive that we can go in that direction. And let's really, just be able to wrap our arms around kind of the full vision and everything else. That way we're all we need to debate it, we all need to talk about it. And I want us to all kind of know what we're debating, right? And talking about, and where everybody's head's at and why. And then committee assignments, I really dropped the ball on that one. I just got that to everybody this morning. Thank you to Councilor Exner, Hokinson, Walker, and Pete Sold for the quick turnaround. this is not to come down on Smallwood and Sheldon. This is my fault. I mean, I just got it to you this morning. But please do try to respond to that, and then I'll take a little time to think it over. But I want to get to the end of that here this week. So I'll do some kind of memo out to council, and then we can have a short discussion about it at our next meeting. But you'll have some definitive answers this week as to where we're going on that. And with that, that's the conclusion of my report this evening. Remember, we've got to stick around for the our Urban Renewal Board meeting. With that, I will conclude tonight's Sandy City Council meeting. I will now call the Sandy Urban Renewal Board meeting to order. Chief Snyder, hello, and Chris, if you're still there, great. Not Jeremy. I won't make Jeremy call the roll. Jeff, please call the roll.
Okay, Councilor Pietzold?
Here.
Councilor Smallwood?
Here.
Councilor Sheldon?
Here.
Councilor Walker?
Here.
Councilor Exner?
Here.
Councilor Hokinson?
Still here.
Chief Schneider?
Here.
Executive Director Jones?
Here. Forgot about the mute.
And Mayor Pulliam?
Here. All right, so here we are. Jordan, I guess I'll let you kick it off, but David's probably going to do most of the talking.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor or Board Chair.
Oh yeah, Board Chair tonight. Yes.
Thank you to Chief Schneider and Chris for the short notice putting this on the agenda. This is one of those things that, we've been rapidly trying to implement this new program, and I think one of the consequences of moving so fast is we're kind of moving faster than maybe what we can stay up with in terms of processing applications and making sure that we have all the parts and pieces in place to make sure that we can actually implement the program and the grants. And so we ran into an issue with actually the number of grants coming in, or a couple of the grants coming in that would be over the amount of $50,000, and these are preliminary numbers. And what that does is trigger the need for the Grant Review Board to meet and approve those grants. And I think in the meantime, since this grant was established, we've also had some good comments and questions. Board member Walker had a number of questions about the program and sort of how these grant programs have been set up in the past and the application process. And so after talking to David about this and hearing about a couple of the members saying they're happy to pass on being part of the board, the Grant Review Board. So let's get this in front of the board on Monday, get their thoughts on some appointments and the makeup of this Grant Review Board, answer their questions, see if they have any thoughts and ideas about the process and moving forward with this program and perhaps all the grant programs. Really the Grant Review Board doesn't have a lot of structure. It's another one of those boards that, was established years ago when these urban renewal programs were established. And, really it's just a paragraph that outlines what they do and reviewing these grants and assisting staff with getting the money out the door for facade grants and for this covered structured program. So, we appreciate your time tonight. Our hope is that we can come away with, some direction on getting some new members appointed to this Grant Review Board, perhaps looking at expanding the membership. I know there's interest perhaps in getting more Sandy Urban Renewal Board members on this committee, and any other, thoughts, ideas on the program, and maybe we work through that with this board. But our hope is that we can continue to kind of move fast, get this board up and running, and reviewing these grants that are coming in on this covered structured program. David, I'm happy to now turn it over to you to finish the staff report. There's some discussion questions that we threw together in that staff report. I know it came out late, so my apologies on that, but if you had a chance to review it, I think it's just a couple-page report, kind of talks about some of the discussion questions, and then we can talk through it tonight too. But David, I'll let you fill in any gaps that I might not have covered there.
Okay, good evening, Council. I'd also like to thank Ms. Jones and Chief Snyder for attending tonight's meeting on such short notice. I just reached out to him on Friday, so thank you both. Appreciate it. Also, just a couple of FYIs before I get started. Well, actually, just one, really. I wanted to let Council and Jordan in particular know that Ms. Jones has invited me to join the Sandy Area of Commerce Board once again. I had to take a break as the bylaws required, but the need there is great. So she asked me to join again, and I'm happy to be on the board, I think, for the third time now. So thank you, Chris. So I'll try and keep my comments pretty brief here. As stated in the staff report this evening, the Sandy Urban Renewal Agency has a grant review board that oversees and approves all grant funded projects that in excess of $50,000 in expenditures. The board's comprised of 2 staff members, the Development Services Director and the Economic Development Manager, 1 City Councilor, which is currently Councilor Smallwood, 1 Planning Commission member, and 1 at-large citizen. While it's not specifically required by the current rules, we do prefer the at-large member to be a business or commercial property owner in Sandy. And if a business owner, a business that's not likely to apply for grants through the Urban Renewal District is preferred, so as to avoid conflicts of interest and recusals. The current PC and at-large members have indicated that they would like to step down, so we need to replace those 2 members. And I have a note here that I currently have calls out to those 2 members to verify this, as that conversation took place a little bit ago. Former Councilor Coleman has responded to me already and said she's not interested. I have not heard from Planning Commissioner Lasowski yet, but I suspect his response will be the same. So anyway, as the covered structure program continues to move forward, staff felt that it would be prudent to fill these vacancies prior to reviewing our first covered structures grant, which will be the one for Sandy Family Restaurant, rather than move forward with the members present. Since this board is part of the Urban Renewal Agency, it would be proper for the Urban Renewal Board to make a recommendation for each position here, and potentially an alternate recommendation if the primary is not capable or interested in serving. I will happily reach out to your recommendations once made to invite them to join the board, and I'll inform council of the results. Staff also felt that this would be an appropriate time for the Urban Renewal Board to look at this grant review board a little bit more broadly to see if there are other changes that they'd like to make. And those additional questions, as listed in the staff report, are as follows. Should the grant review board expand to include more Urban Renewal Agency board members and or at-large community and business members? In other words, should we add members, and if so, from what category? Number 2, what other changes should be considered for the board's membership, such as removing or adding staff members or elected officials? And should we establish terms? Currently, the members of this board serve indefinitely. And the suggestion was made that maybe we should consider 2 or 4 year terms for these positions. And the third and final question is, should the program guidelines be modified to include the grant review board on more grant applications? In other words, should we change the $50,000 threshold and move it up or down? You know, lowering it will improve grant oversight, but will likely add time to the completion of some of these projects. The only urgent request we have for you this evening is to make recommendations to fill these vacant seats. However, staff will also work to incorporate any additional SURA requested changes to the other 3 questions regarding the grant review board as we see them. So I open it up to conversation.
All right, we're open to conversation. Councilor Walker.
I have quite a few questions. Real quick, does the staff approve projects less than 50,000?
Yes.
And this board that is in place has been approving or spending, granting money to private businesses that's over 50,000. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is that, and that doesn't have, and is there some sort of authority given for this, you know, when we get into the boards and the commissions and all that? And so this board, or whatever you called it, advisory board, is making decisions to spend over $50,000 allocations, right?
Correct.
Without the entire board that we see on the screen here kind of even knowing what's being decided, or
the members of the grant review board are recommended by the Urban Renewal Agency board. So.
Right, but that's a big, I mean, that's kind of, I was under the impression that this was the group that decided on how the urban renewal money would be spent. And I don't mean the nickel and dime stuff, but you know, $50,000, even $40,000 is given that we only, I mean, it's not chump change, but I think, from where I'm sitting, I kind of feel like that's something that we could, first of all, streamline into, not something that we go through and do the whole year, but that we streamline a process and then have this commission or board, whatever we're called, are we a board? Whatever it is, that we kind of, review the grant applications and have clear criteria and then make those decisions. I guess my concern again about all this is just really that I've heard a little bit of feedback from some of the business owners about, they didn't know about the gazebo stuff or they heard it from another person. And so my concern is that, first of all, everybody understands what's available. Second of all, that it's very fair and transparent process as to how we're handing out money, because $50,000 is a lot of money for any of these businesses. And I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to apply for it if they're interested, and that we have a good process to evaluate the benefits to the businesses and residents for allocating that money. I don't mean to imply anything untoward has happened, but perceptions can be reality. And so it's just kind of important that everybody can look at this and say, well, I did apply, but I didn't get it because of these reasons. And these people had better applications or whatever. So just being fair and transparent is my primary objective. And then having done so many grants over the many years, is just, having a grant process that kind of is, cut and paste from some of the other grant processes where you have a clear application and you have all the information. And when you get, three people's grant applications, they're not apples, oranges, and pears. You can compare and make some judgments as to which one is the best and all that. So those are the kind of the concerns that I had going into this. I do feel like this board should be the ones to be making the financial decisions because we're the ones responsible for that, I think. I'm not clear on where, we're giving the authority to make, that's sort of like setting up a commission where we're giving some other group financial authority to make some pretty big allocations. So I won't ramble on anymore, but those are my thoughts off the top of my head. And I did give you all that one-page summary of kind of how roles and responsibilities and possible grant processes could go forward to, hopefully address some of those challenges. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. I saw Counselor Peetzel's hand up and then Counselor Smallwood.
Yeah, I'll just give you a little context or history about the process, because I think that will give you a little bit of why it changed so many years ago. And I don't even remember the years. It may have been 10 years ago that changed the process, that every single little thing used to come in front of the Urban Renewal Board to get approved. So every time we did a facade or someone needed to put $5,000 of paint on a building, these type of things would come in front of this board. And so I forget, 8-10 years ago, whatever it was brought forward that there was an allocation up to a certain amount to create a committee to be able to vet whether or not this was something that was in the criteria of the what we were giving direction for. And a lot of that was the facade program. Around the facade program, as you know, we did lots of facade programs, and some of it was just literally paint. And so sometimes we'd have to wait and meet and get on an agenda to do this, and we've lost the window of the summer for that. Also, it took a lot of time for all those little things to come in for us as a board to gather and do that and meet and then in the process for that. And so that's where it came out of the council and the board, I should say the board, not just the council, had come up and saying, okay, we don't actually want you to bring it to us, but we're going to put together these people that we've appointed to review these things for that criteria of that. And I believe there is a cap in the budget. There is a certain dollar amount, David, is that right? About how much each biennium, and I think you even broke it down per year, that could be spent on any of these programs. So it's just not an unlimited fund within inside the urban budget. There was a designed amount that was there and kind of allocated through those things. Or as time went on, like for instance, this gazebo project here recently, or whatever we're calling it, structure project was one that was added to then be reviewed under this process that wasn't necessarily the original facade program piece of that urban renewal allocation. And I'll agree with you. I think everyone here has heard me speak on the fact that we just can't keep going back to the well of the urban renewal, and I would like to see bigger projects and not just the little ones. On that said, I think the Sandy style and doing that, what we've done with the facade program and certain things have really enhanced our city and our community and where we live and the livability of that. So I've got both sides of it. I'm very much, I want to see 362nd bill. I want to see the community campus bill. And I'm very much about, we can't nickel and dime the thing to death. On the other hand, I see the efficiency of that. And so when you ask for the authority of it, this group gave that authority to that group to do those things under that $50,000 limit. Just like this, the Council and the Urban Renewal Board did give the authority last April, the authority to hand out the grants to businesses. And we appointed a board, which I chaired in that section last year, and then again here more recently to hand out the $3,000 grants to businesses that applied and went through the structure of that so that the entire board didn't have to review every single application in that process. So I'm not debating it in that aspects of it. I'm just kind of giving that history and some of the reasonings where the past councils and staff found that we need to kind of streamline this because of our agendas and what we're all doing and so busy that some of those small, we'll call them the $5,000 paint jobs or the $10,000 allocated fees were coming from that we're always being trying to get onto the agenda as well, streamlining it in that aspect. So that's the history behind it. And we'll have to chat more if you have more questions or reserve right to speak later on it.
Thank you. Councillor Smollett.
Jeremy stole part of my thunder there, which is good. Thank you, Jeremy. That was an excellent explanation of some of that. The only other thing that I wanted to add is, we made this decision to move forward with this project a couple months ago, and we're still here talking about it. Meanwhile, these businesses are still suffering and we've made no headway, and that very much frustrates me. So I would really like to move forward with this project ASAP.
If I may respond, Councillor Smollett, we do have a project that is ready to review. So as soon as we can convene the grant review board, we will have a project to look at that is ready to go. And we have another one that is completed design that we will probably be ready in 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome. One thing I would highlight too real quick is that, remember, we do allocate the budget, right? Like we do vote for the budget. And so while this committee does then turn around and allocate money, they are within the parameters of, budgetary line items that we as a board set forth for them. I saw a hand up from Chief Snyder, and then Don, did you have a hand up as well? Okay, so let's go to Chief Snyder and then we'll go to Don.
Yeah, my question, the limit was 41.5. So when did that get raised past the 41,500 mark? Because that just back a couple of years ago was the max that had to go out. They could make decisions if they followed the criteria and it stayed at the max 41.5, then they could make those decisions. But anything over that would come back to the council. And then, yeah, you guys set the limit every year. And that's, again, that was my other question. Are we staying within that budgetary annual with all the other ones going on?
So to answer your first question, Chief, the 41,500 is the maximum amount of reimbursable grant money a business can get through the facade program. The limit we're looking at here is $50,000 of project expenses. So that's the difference.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and Councillor Hokanson, and then we'll go to Commissioner.
So I'm racking my brain. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to connect all the dots, but where does the grant review board get its authority? I looked for a charter. I looked for a web page. I looked for a link. I looked for something in the city code. I can't find anything that talks about the makeup of the board or these limits or rules that have been stated. So is that just something that's missing from our website? Does it live somewhere? It's not in the urban renewal plan. So where does this authority for this grant review board come from?
I think it's, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just established by the program criteria. So when the board adopted the program criteria for the facade grant program, and then with the covered structures program, it just says there shall be, or a grant review board shall be established that has, you know, this membership and shall review grants in over 50,000. That's it, as far as I know, right?
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can speak to some of that as well. Back, it's been more than 10 years ago now, when I think the facade grant program was started. That might have been the first or maybe second instance where the Urban Renewal Board decided, okay, we're gonna, you know, take a portion of what we budget and delegate some of that authority to this, you know, what amounts to a subgroup of participants that can make decisions up to that amount. It is really just you know, outgrowth from I mean, you really want to start like from, you know, state law, and then the urban renewal plan, as you mentioned, and the authority that's granted to urban renewal boards. It's a combination of that. I'm not exactly sure where it's housed, but there are ultimately the urban renewal board, much like with this covered structures program, has a series of criteria that are established, and the board basically says, okay, well, up to this amount, this group will approve grant applications, and things below that, staff is authorized to approve.
You're muted, Stan.
So Councillor Exner was next, but it almost looked like Councillor Hokinson. Did you have like a follow-up question, or are you okay in the queue?
Yeah, for the follow-up is all great, David. It sounds good, but I can't find the document that was authorized to make this happen.
So I know that the last one Kelly had sent over after the last meeting. So David Snyder, presumably you have a copy of that you could share with Councillor Hokinson?
I'll have to look through my stuff, but yeah, I'm sure I can find something.
I can find it as well. That was as a result from, it was, I don't know, a couple meetings ago when the board adopted it.
Yeah,
I can help as well if you have trouble finding it.
Well, you guys look for that. Councillor Exner, why don't you ask a question? Then just so we know the queue, it goes Rich and then Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking that besides putting together this committee board that makes the decision for the smaller projects, I understood that we were looking at these over $50,000 accounts, and we did not want those to sit there and languish until we come up with a board that might be selected and recruited, and all the things it's going to take to put those folks together so that we can have a board to make some of those decisions. I think we need to, like Councillor Smallwood said, move forward on some of these. If they are indeed things we want to do, let's not hesitate. Let's get that done if we can tonight even. So I am in favor of Dave Snyder, not Dave. If there is a over $50,000 recommendation, let's take a look at it. And I think as the Urban Renewal Board, let's say yes or no on it tonight. Don't want to wait.
I am not opposed to that. In fact, I kind of thought that's why we were doing this. Rich.
I don't want to delay a process either, and I think we have a quorum here, so I don't see why we couldn't make a decision. On the flip side of that is, I do have some questions a little bit, and one of those being that I don't know anything about the application of this. If it exists, I haven't seen it, so I would almost feel like, as much as I truly want to help out these businesses and move it forward, I don't feel I can make an informed decision tonight without anything in front of me. And I have nothing. So that's my hesitation. The desire is there, Carl, but I don't think I can make an informed decision. And I apologize for that on wherever that falling is. But I do have some questions beyond that as well. And thank you, Jeremy, for the history. I think it's super important to understand why we landed where we landed. But $50,000 is a lot of money. It's a sizable amount of money when you look at what things cost and being fiscally responsible. And for a city this size, $50,000, that's a half FTE for most spots. And so this is a substantial, just to put it in reality of what it is, that's a substantial amount of money. And I think it does. So I just wonder, how did we land at 50,000 and not a lower threshold would be my first question. The second question is, without the information of how this all exists, I have some questions about, back to what is the process? Like what do businesses do when they're applying? In the grants that I've worked with, there's a very clear process to it. There's AAs attached to it. There's very clear guidelines that I have to follow in order to receive that money. And I'm just wondering if we have anything that's very similar to that, and what those are, where those live. And it also outlines who's eligible and who's not, which kind of brings me into the next question is, the one thing I've kind of heard echoed a little bit, and I think Kathleen brought it up, is, I think just the meeting a while ago, scooters, I think is what it was. What advertising are we doing to get this out to the businesses and find it's there? It may be occurring. I'm not a business owner, so I'm not aware of it. So I'm just kind of asking a little bit for my own edification. But what process are we doing to say, hey, look, this money's here. This is the process. Kind of comes back to, again, the agreements. And then who has come up with that process? Was it this board? Was it the delegated board? Was it an outside entity? Who's decided the process that grants this money, the 49.9 below, to the people without this board's recommendation? Those are my questions.
I can answer the question about publicizing the program. We really haven't done much of that yet, other than I have been talking to businesses individually, and I have talked with a lot of them, almost all of them that would be eligible for this program I have talked to already. Some, like scooters, I did talk to Jeremy Klein about this, decided that it would be better for them to go forward with a temporary solution for right now because of the fact that they don't own the property there. And I did reach out to Albanese Cormier, the owner of the Sandy Marketplace there, and talk to them about that. Permanent covered structures in some of their parking area. And as you can imagine, they weren't too interested in that. So I think that's why Jeremy made the decision to go the direction that he did. But I would still be happy to talk to him if he decided, if he could find a different location for it, maybe that's something that Albanese Cormier would be okay with. So, but I've reached out to, like I said, most of the businesses in town now that would qualify for this program already, and would be more than happy to put together some more official outreach to the community at large about that.
What's the barrier that prevents that I want to call it making it public?
There is none. There is none. It's just that we've been moving so quickly with this that that at the time seemed the most efficient way to go about it. But I'm certainly open to any suggestions along those lines.
Well, I think we just had a lot of conversations about things being equitable and fair. I just really, I would like to make sure that every business in town has that opportunity, and that at least been presented to them, and it's up to them to make their best business practice from there.
That's right, Rich. That's exactly right, Rich. We have to get it. We have to make sure that everybody who can get access to the money knows about it and applies. I don't want to be like the vaccine distribution, though. Right? I don't want to stand around and try to use equitable and access and all that, and then hold up the entire process of trying to get it done.
I fully agree, but if we have someone that's the job is to get that out and develop our economic, I hate to put it on it, but that's your job, and it needs
Oh,
to be done in an expedient, because this is an expedient process. I agree. This needs to get pushed out, but it also needs to make sure that we get it pushed out to everybody. And sometimes that means we step up and do a little more than we normally would do.
Right. There is one more variable involved here, and that was the switch over from of our web platform from EvoGov to Municode. This just happened to fall right at the time that we were going through that switch, and we'd hit the cutoff where we couldn't add things to the old to the EvoGov website because it wouldn't get transferred over in the process. That's complete now. So now I am at the capacity. I'm learning how to build websites right now, and I'm confident that I can put something together like that to post on the website quickly.
Can I answer the question for Rich on that one topic that maybe no one else is answering this, and maybe just because I have a little bit of history on it, is the application process? Because the kids could come up a couple times. Hey, what is the standard application, or what's this application process? And this really dates back to Lazenby's time. And I know, Kathleen, you've been around for most of all of Lazenby's time there, but it was to keep it as simple as possible in the application process. And, you know, Sandy is a great town and everything, but we're not full of lawyers that can fill out, and business owners that are full of lawyers. And it was to keep it as simple as possible and straightforward as possible. And so those applications that are there, even when we went through the other process, was to do that. So the standard part of this application process may not look the same as maybe some of the grants that other people have applied for, federal or state or county. And that's just, it could be changed. We could change that, but that is the history of why this application process has been very more simplified. Is we wanted to not be a barrier for those that may be confused because they're good at running a restaurant or good at running another store or whatever, but filling out the grant applications there. We came along as a city and helped with filling some of those out, and not as trying to give advantage over one over another. It's just, that's not their business of being in. So that's just a little bit of history on that, because I know it hadn't been answered by anyone. So
all right, let's try to start to round this meeting up here, guys. So I'm going to go to Lori, and then poor Chris actually follows technology. Has her hand up. I didn't even know to look for it. So let's go Lori, and then Chris, and then I saw Carl's hand up, and I'll try to get back on track. But let's. Okay, I see you down there, Kathleen.
I was in the queue after Rich, but that's okay. I'll
Were you? All right. All right.
I just have a really quick statement, super quick.
Quick.
I don't feel everybody on this panel understands how the Urban Renewal Board works and thinks that this money is coming out of our city budget, and it's not. And so can we please have a 2-minute rundown on how Urban Renewal works so that Dawn and Rich and Kathleen can have a better understanding of what we're even talking about?
David Dofman.
Yeah, sure. So it is a separate, the Urban Renewal Agency is a separate entity. Every city in Oregon has the ability to create one. Sandy has, obviously, many other cities have. And it's what's called tax increment financing. So within the district, gosh, I'm really trying to keep this at a very digestible level. But when the district was created, property tax levels were frozen. So as property taxes increased over time, as investments were made in the district, and property taxes on individual properties would rise, that piece that rises, that what they call the increment, is the amount that goes to fund the Urban Renewal Agency. And then out of that money are dollars that are spent for projects like the facade program, investments in infrastructure, everything that would be authorized by the Urban Renewal Plan. So it's money that is basically property tax money that for a certain period of time, the life of the Urban Renewal Agency is taken and given to the agency for specific purposes that are outlined in the Urban Renewal Plan.
What can it not go to?
Anything that's not authorized by the plan. And so those are really depends upon what the plan says. Every plan is a bit different. It certainly can't go to fund improvements, activities, things that benefit properties outside of the urban renewal area. So in Sandy's case, that's basically downtown. I mean, there's the boundary's a little bit bigger than that. So the Urban Renewal Board can't spend money on, let's say, something on the way west side of town, or something that's outside of the urban renewal area.
The Smoky Heart.
I'm sorry.
Smoky Heart.
For example,
Heart being an
Smoky
example.
Yeah, assuming that's not within it, right? Exactly.
Right.
But there were the Sandy Police Department had a portion of its, if not, I don't remember exactly the number, but that had urban renewal funding. It can be used for a broad variety of things, and the idea is that investment in that area, this is the theory, will raise property taxes everywhere, and when the life of the district ends, you have that increased revenue for all taxing authorities, school districts, you name it. All of them would then have a higher tax base with which to work.
Isn't there $500,000 also going back to the fire department every year just to kind of make them whole?
Nope.
Isn't there funding going from, Jeremy's shaking his head yes.
Yeah, there is money. It's just not like you said. Go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just gonna tell them too, like the fire district, so we lose about 200,000 a year in our revenue that goes to urban renewal. And yes, we did years ago, over 20 years ago, we made a deal kind of that 10% would kind of go in a coffer for the fire district. And that's how we got our money. We ended up using about 3.5 million towards the new almost $7 million project that we had. So for us, that was great. But and David, like you were saying, it really did, unless things have changed, there is definitely rules, and it always went back to the brick and mortar. It had to be brick and mortar type. You couldn't use it on personnel. You couldn't buy apparatus with that type of thing. I think some of the stuff is lightened up, but it really reflects back on the brick and mortar. It has to stay in place. You can't shake it off the wall.
Yeah, it's largely capital investments. That's absolutely right.
Perfect example is we could use urban renewal to build or renovate the swimming pool, but we cannot use urban renewal for the ongoing operations.
To the operations, that's right. And just to really put a fine point on Chief Schneider's point, it's not the urban renewal money that is going to the fire district is not just a pot of money that then goes into the fire district's general fund. It's for specific improvements for the fire district. And that is largely a political calculation. Back when it started, there wasn't any obligation to do any of that. Now there effectively is. If you were to create a new urban renewal district, you actually have to get a number of other taxing agencies to say we're okay with that. Back when Sandy started, that wasn't in the statute. Now it is.
All right, so let's go to Kathleen in the queue and then to Chris.
Thank you. So just kind of for others' edification, I was on the government camp TIF district, involved in that, got $500,000 to build trails up to Timberline, over to Trillium and all that. So I'm intimately familiar with how TIF works, what it can be used as. And that's kind of why when I got involved in this, I do, I'm not just, this isn't my first rodeo. So I appreciate all the background from Jeremy on how this stuff goes. I also appreciate the fact that, how we did things when we were just looking at $500 paint jobs or $5,000 facade improvements might have worked then, but now when we're talking about $50,000 and $100,000 allocations, we might need to kind of up our game a little bit. My question, two questions, and one question and a follow-up. What I understood was that y'all agreed on December 21st, and it's not really clear in the notes, but $300,000 or something that was left in the facade improvement pot would go towards kind of be transferred over to this gazebo or whatever you're calling it, exterior, whatever they're called. And that the staff was going to be allowed to authorize under $50,000, and anything over $50,000 would then come to this other board, this advisory board. One question for you, David. Are the two projects that you have, can you tell me what the name of the business is and the amount?
The first business is Ria's/Sandy Family Restaurant. The quoted price was $57,125, and then there was a we're considering a change order today that the owner would like to go with that would add another 13. So it'd be around 70,000. On the second one, we haven't gone out to bid yet, so we don't know how much.
And who's the business?
The second one, Boring Brewing.
Boring Brewing, okay. Uh-huh.
And then I also have, I'm in conversations also with La Bamba. They don't want to build a covered structure. They're more interested in just some of the ancillary pieces of this program, like heaters. So that will almost certainly be under 50,000.
You had mentioned that the health club, Mount Hood Athletic Club, was also submitting something.
We're not certain if that project is going to move forward or not.
Okay, all right. So
and then I've also talked to La Happy. They would like to do one as well.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what that would be. I suspect that one would probably be under 50,000 as well.
okay, and so that's my thing is like I don't have a clear understanding of are we just have $300,000 to spend, and if we give, so if we're giving $50,000, that's 6 lucky people, and if as soon as we go over that, then the number of winners goes down from there. So that's where I want it to happen fast. I want it to, I want us to kind of streamline this so we can make decisions and get these things started. I definitely want that. But I also want to make sure that, whoever wants it, that we have a good, it cannot be a first come, first serve thing that if you're, Rhea, and you heard about this earlier, which I think she did, heard it earlier than others, then she got all her stuff in and she gets $70,000, and somebody else who just heard the other day, is at the end of the line and, is left wanting. So that's the concern I have, because it just really, those kind of things don't smell right, and we live with them forever. It just doesn't, when we're talking $70,000, $50,000, that's a buttload of money to be, to not have a clear established process. I think that should have been done going into this. And I think, the idea that we haven't reached out to every business that's eligible for this yet is something that needs to be corrected by, the end of the week. And, I want to hurry it up, but I also want to do it right, because the consequences of doing this wrong, I don't want to be on, I don't want to be part of this board and have it, look like we were giving it to whoever heard about it first. Because there's the perception that, well, those are the buddies of the staff or whatever. It's just things you read on Facebook. Oh, things people's are in people's pockets. I know they're not in the pocket. I know we're trying to do the best thing. I just want it to, pass the smell test, and let's get it out efficiently and quickly and effectively transparently. Thanks.
Thank you. David, have you not let all the business, have you not said a couple of times in this meeting, David, that you've let all the business owners know?
I have not reached out to every one of them individually yet, no.
All right, let's get it done.
I have spoken to most of them.
All right.
Chris was motioning something. Were you saying that you did?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yes, so that's what I was going to say a while back here is back in December, shortly after this was approved by council, that we are running a BRC, a business recovery center, through the chamber here in town. And during that time when the grants for Clackamas County came out, for that last one they did right before Christmas, our field reps were out there and calling the businesses, letting them know, or visiting them in person to let them know about these grants for Clackamas County. It's specifically the food ones, because that's one of those it was being geared towards. And during those conversations, I know specifically one of our field reps was talking to each of those businesses that she could get a hold of and letting them know that this was coming down too and had just been approved. So I do know that's been out there. Some of it may have been left on voicemails if they couldn't get a hold of them. They don't always call back. I mean, we can try to reach them and feed them the information, but if they're not returning calls and communicating, we can't always get that point across. But I do know that as far as the recovery centers, we have reached out to those businesses and restaurants as well.
Thank you. Jordan, and then Councilor Exner.
Just really quick, wanted to add to that. It hasn't been a full blitz, but we did. This was our featured article on the December Sandy Source newsletter. And the Sandy posted an article right after the board approved the program. So, it was put out there on Facebook and our newsletter, and it was in the paper. But beyond that, it hasn't been, blasted weekly or daily or anything like that. But we tried to get it out at least so that it was publicized and people know about the program or have the opportunity to find out more. The questions about the budget were addressed. I think it was a great point by the mayor that this board does approve that budget each year or each biennium for the grant program. And so I think it was $380,000 that's in the line for all the grant programs, including the recent additions, the child care incentive program and this covered structured program. And I think because of COVID, there's been a lag, just in amount of interest in the facade grants and the tenant improvements. So I think it was around $300,000 that was left in that line in the urban renewal budget that we, had talked about when this program was passed, that we could possibly go up to that amount for grants for this program. And then if we get more than that, any kind of more interest than what we think the budget can handle, we'd have to come back to the board to see if, you wanted to make a budget adjustment or, see if we just want to cap it at that $300,000 level. But I really just want to mention the fact that we had it in the newsletter and it was in the paper too. Thanks.
Yeah. Councillor Exner we're like a technology crew now. And then Councillor Peetzold and then Hokinson, you better be getting that electronic hand up, man, or you're going to get forgotten about these days.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to do this electronically. We got so many interested parties. Yeah. I'm a little concerned. This meeting was set up as identified in my mind as almost as an emergency.
Yes.
We have a couple, 3 things that just have to be done immediately. Otherwise, a lot of these questions are really beneficial and I think it need to be asked. And I'm listening to a few things that I think to myself, so why didn't we think about those sort of things? Those kind of questions ought to be put in an orderly design meetings where we identify those on the staff report and establish that so we can discuss them, change, modify, whatever that needs to be done for this board. I think tonight we need to focus on, and I don't want to restrict the questions about how we are doing the decision making tonight. I don't want that at all, but I think we need to focus on what's important tonight. Get that done. It's 9 o'clock. This could go until midnight for the way conversations seem to be going. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't have maybe a little bit more in the staff report that said, here's what we need to do. Even though it was a quick set, I think we should have had some good conversation by a written document by the staff. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what we need from you tonight. And then the rest of this thing, conversations should be put onto an orderly meeting where we can talk about it, have plenty of time, have the background, all that sort of stuff. So to me, I think we need to reestablish what's going on tonight. What do we need to do? Get those questions behind us that we need to know to make a wise decision, knowing that none of this is illegal. None of this is done to forestall somebody to do something or not somebody to get in the line. Council's already made some decisions. We've got some precedent. I think we should focus on and I think there's 2 things. One is the board committee, and the other one is what projects need to be approved to keep them going in forward motion. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but otherwise we're going to be here quite a long time. So I think we should focus on the important. What's going to happen tonight?
The most important thing for me would be to get recommendations from the Urban Renewal Board as to replace the members that are absent. That's the urgent thing from my perspective.
So are we just picking them out of the sky?
Well, one needs to be a PC member and the other is an at-large member. So a citizen of Sandy, preferably a business owner.
So we've got to pick a planning commission member and then pray that they'll accept it. And then the same with a random business community member.
Yeah. Mayor, I don't think we can do that tonight. We got all kinds of things in the way. I thought we were looking at a project or 2.
I did too. I thought my understanding from my quick back and forth with staff on putting this on the agenda was that, we have this board issue going on that was going to take longer to take care of. So we were going to have to convene our broader board to do some quick approvals on some things while we figure out this other board deal.
We have no applications in front of us.
Right. Well, I agree. I thought we were going to, I agree, Kathleen. I thought we were going to have some applications in front of us. All right, Jeremy.
Yeah, so I wanted to just I heard some statements there. The amounts that we were talking about for REAs and the other ones, those were project amounts, correct? Not amounts that would be awarded, right?
Correct.
So there is still so I mean, just to make sure everyone was aware of, there's still a percentage that each business still has to chip in. So when we talk 75,000, that's not what's all coming out of it. That's the project amount. Anything over the project amount of the 50. I just want to make sure everyone was aware of that. And that percentage that the business has to chip in on the project is what, 20%?
Correct.
20% of that. So just to make sure everyone was on the same page there. As far as getting the announcements out and everything like that, I've heard the paper, the newsletter, the chamber, and the staff. And I get frustrated when we try to get the news out there. That to me is us and everybody getting it out there. And I guess maybe it's because I've been on this a long time and I hear the part of in the 11th hour, when you go to vote, we've never heard of this before, but it's been in all the other things. You know, we can inform people, but that doesn't mean that, you know, that they cannot not participate in that aspect and finding out for themselves. You know, we can't handhold them to make sure and hand feed them all this information. There's appropriate ways of communicating that out there. And I think we've hit that, especially with the paper and our newsletter and the chamber. I mean, those were the ones that we would be going to, let alone the staff also communicating. I know I was communicating to business, hey, did you hear what we did? You know, and I know that several other members as well are participating in that as in kind of getting the word out there. So I think that is that point of it. As far as the board members, the way I see it is that is what's in there. That doesn't mean that this board can't change that, and we could change that tonight and have that. It doesn't mean that we couldn't have more. We could be more of the board members on that committee in replacing the other ones. Now we can't have more than 3 city councilors, and we can't on that board because that would be a quorum, or more of the majority of what was on this one all on that, but that's not what we're suggesting. So, you know, instead of having 1 city council on there, a board member, we could have a couple more positions on that, which might be the better thing to do in the long run as well, is having more of this as part of that committee that would be going forward, is a lot of what I'm hearing. So those are some options to be able to move that forward. You know, we don't have the project in front of us today for us to approve it, because that was the other thing. We could, as a board, sidestep that committee and approve that right here, but we have not seen the specs or be able to answer that, and that'd probably be something through a workshop anyways. But those are my thoughts on that. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on, you know, changing the board members and adding more people from this group onto that board to satisfy that or not.
Either that, and then I'm going to go to Don's next, then Rich, and I see your hand up down there, Kathleen. I'm just going to throw out 2 names. Planning Commissioner Maiden, I think, would be great. And I think that Ernie Bracci could be great as well, because I could see him as someone who's involved in our local business community, not up for a grant with this type of business, who would be willing to do it. Those are just 2 names that hit my head since we're kind of under the gun tonight. Don.
Thank you, Mayor. This is going to be kind of harsh, and I apologize in advance for the harshness. And unfortunately, a lot of it's going to be targeted at you, David Snyder. And but this feels very fast and loose, you know, in terms of how it was created in the first place. The motion that was originally approved in December 21st. The fact that it's not searchable, you cannot find it on the website. The fact that we're sitting here 6 weeks later and we're being asked now for guidance as to the makeup of this board that was created on December 21st. My question is, why in the heck wasn't the council then asked for those kinds of questions of how many, who, representatives, and so forth? Instead, we're 6 weeks down the road, and now we're contemplating some very basic governance things. I would ask that not just for economic development, but for all staff, that when we're when as a council, we're faced with making a change, that I love the idea that Mike Walker brought those red lines. It's easy to see what we're proposing. When we come in with the staff report like we have today, it's not clear at all how we're changing what was into what is being asked for moving forward. And so it makes for a very difficult discussion and conversation. Lastly, maybe it's too soon for a motion, but and I don't even know why it was approved as a program, because this is before me, but for whatever reason, we have a program that was approved by the board for the Sandy facade. I think it was the facade program, City of Sandy Facade Improvement Grant Program. That's what was approved in December 21st, and it has sections. It looks like code. It looks like a charter. I don't know why it's called that. Maybe it's a one-off. But there are two sections in there that are concerning, and I would love to see us strike them in our meeting today, because I think it would give us a path forward faster while we continue to figure out the longer-term governance things. So the first is in section 5 with the first come, first serve rule. At this point, we're long past first come, first serve. We either have people in the queue or we don't. And number 2 is to strike section 11, the grant review board. At this point, by the time you're going to get the board up and approved and running, plus we've got all these questions of transparency, why don't we just reconvene this group at our next meeting to review those grants, bring them prepared, ready, let's review them, let's approve them, it's transparent. You've got everybody's buy-in, and we can move forward in 2 weeks, as opposed to who knows how long this is going to continue to languish while we figure things out. If you think we're ready for a motion, Mayor, I'd make that, but maybe it's too soon.
Let's see what Rich says, but I'm down for a motion.
No, I kind of feel responsible for hijacking this thing a little bit. But I'm sorry. When I read this, forgive me, but if I read number 3, program guidelines modified and looking for clarification. So I'm sorry, that was my intent. I didn't mean for this to go that way. I do want to go back to what I originally said, though, is I do think this is super important to start getting moved forward. And so I was going to ask, and maybe Don answered it there, what can we do? I don't think we can make a decision tonight. We have nothing in front of us on this besides a staff report that I'm sorry isn't clear to me, obviously. But maybe with some grants getting pushed out to us, some applications pushed out to us so that we can review them. I don't know, can we just get this on the agenda for the next 2 weeks and approve it the next city council meeting so that we can move this forward as soon as possible, because I don't think it's fair to the businesses to keep them waiting while we.
Let me ask everybody this. I think this is important enough. Would you guys be up for a real quick re-adjournment of our Urban Renewal Board for an emergency meeting to approve this stuff?
Are you talking about sooner than our next council meeting?
Yeah, I'm saying let's let staff get off and run and put together something better, and then we just come together as an Urban Renewal Board meeting and do it, and then and that's all we handle that evening.
What's the notice requirement?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, we got to have some sort of idea what we're making decisions on.
Well, that's what I'm at. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm trying to move us forward, right? I'm throwing it out there. Staff tell me if the mayor's like out of line. You know, I mean, can we do that? I want to get moving on this. To Rich's point, we're not going to be able to come to a decision tonight, right? So to give us a little bit more breathing room, but not have to punt this thing out 2 weeks during this crisis. I'm seeing nods that we'd be willing to come back together. I mean, so help me make that work, staff.
My concern on this is that, and again, I'll apologize like Don did for this sounding harsh, but my expectation for this project would have been that the Economic Development Director has a Rolodex of all the potential businesses out there. It's not like we've got hundreds of restaurants and all that. So it's a fairly reasonable list.
sending an email out to every one of them. I assume he has their emails, and then following up with a phone call. Again, it's not hundreds of businesses. Following up with a phone call to them to say, did you get the email? Are you interested? Can I put you in the interested category, and then I'll follow up with you again, or no, you're not interested. That's the kind of process I would have expected, so that we knew who's interested, who's not, and then working, as I see it, that position is supposed to be working with those folks. I agree that those grant process can be challenging, but just having that person work with the person on filling out the application so that we have something, we have applications in front of us to kind of look at and say, yeah, we only have so much money to give, and here's the ones that should get it. So that's, and if we can do that in the next week and a half or whatever, that's great. But, making those phone calls and sending those emails to the whole list to everybody is kind of my, I think it's really important to be fair and make sure everybody heard about it, because half of these people don't even live in Sandy, these business owners. They're not looking at our newsletter or our Facebook page or any of that. You reach out to these businesses, they're our partners. It's personal contact, phone calls and emails. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with all of that, Kathleen. But also, though, to your point, there's only so many of them, right? We're only so big of a community, so let's get it done, right? Let's make those phone calls. Let's reach out, but let's get that going, right? All right, Jordan was about to speak, though. I do want to hear Jordan, and then Rich. I see your hand up.
I'm just trying to kind of wrap up with the direction. So you want an emergency meeting schedule a sort of board meeting to approve what projects, which, sounds like from David that we have RIAs and maybe another, I don't know if a week we'll get the bids back or not, but we may have 2 projects. You also want us to bring back names for possible appointments to the grant review board to move forward with the grant review board, or do you want to scratch that as suggested by Councilor or Board Member Hokanson on just having this board approve that? Because we'll probably need to meet a few more times too in future meetings, because David, I don't think we're going to have 5 grants. We'll probably have 1 or 2 in the next week for this board to approve, and then they may trickle in after that.
Well, Don, I see your hand up. Why don't we build a consensus here between our 2 oddball plans of just wanting to get forward?
So at this point, I think that timing actually works better in our favor to remove the grant review board, eliminate it as part of the equation right now. We'd have 2 to review right away as this full board. And then if the next one comes up 2 or 3 weeks later, we just schedule it into our regular meeting right before or right after, and we approve it. It comes out, I would assume it would come out as a package, so we'd all have a chance to look at it. I don't imagine it would take a whole lot of time to review and approve them.
I'm in.
Famous last words, Don. Famous last words.
I'm starting to wonder if this group can get, I love this group. I just wonder if we'll get it done very quickly. But no, that works.
What is the meeting? What's the meeting announcement thing that we have to do to have a meeting? Is it 7 days, 5 days? I know there's certain noticing for meetings. What is that?
You could do it within 24 hours of the meeting. So certainly if you're doing it within a couple of days, that's perfectly fine.
Carl?
Yeah, I'm really with Don here on this. We don't really have the ability to find out who's going to be willing to go on this board until we do outreach, and it's going to take whatever time that takes. And I think we should just eliminate the board decision process that we set up and just go ahead with what projects are in crisis that need to be responded to right away, so we don't delay. And then let's go through some of the other conversations in an orderly manner. But at this point, I don't see any proposal in front of me. I don't see any proposed names. I'm not sure what I can decide tonight that would be intelligent. So propose tonight that we can do an emergency to look at these projects that need to be taken care of right away. And I'll try to put it in my schedule as much as I can. Hopefully everybody else can do the same. Let's make that decision, but let's put the rest of that, all this good conversation tonight onto a meeting somewhere we can orderly decide what we want to do to go forward. Obviously we have some new people, and maybe we have some rethinking from some of us older folks that need to be thought into how we want to go forward. But I'm wondering where the emergency is right now. I don't see how we can vote for anybody to be on the board I don't have a project in front of me to even think about logically or reasonably. So let's do something that we can do that's going to make it right.
All right. I think we have a path forward. We don't need a vote on that path though, do we? All right.
No, I don't believe so. Consensus
I am
is
going
fine.
to make one more comment about, I would like to see a deadline for the, if you guys want to go forward with these first two projects or something like that, I guess I can go along with that on an emergency thing, but I want to see a grant deadline. That's how grants work. You have a deadline to get your application in. And so that in 3 weeks, we have a grant deadline for all the businesses to get their applications in, so that we're not just first come, first serve in this, because I really can't support that. It's not how you do a grant process. So a deadline for the grants needs to be put into place. And then we can schedule the meetings and review applications and make decisions and get it done.
I guess it's just, where I'm debating, and I'm going to go to you, Don, but where I'm debating on it, it's like when I think of our tenant, and this is it's a little different, Kathleen, right? Because it's kind of that we're in this capsule of COVID time, right? Where people are struggling, so they're trying to get to it. I think the reason the first come, first serve is in there is because in the normal world, this is wrapped within the tenant improvement program and the facade program, and it's a new business opportunity coming in, and they're doing some restructuring with their business, or they're propelling it up. So it's not like we have a bunch of people needing to all apply at once, right? So then it becomes that first come, first serve kind of by need. But this is a little different because we're in this capsule of time because of COVID. So I could see us doing something for this, a grant deadline or something for this, because this is kind of a specialized grant program for kind of COVID relief. Don, you look like you had some ideas on that, or on to move forward. You're muted though, so you can't share those.
Dang it. Sorry. Thank you. So the question was asked, do we need to vote to move forward? I feel like we do, because the motion that was approved in December 21st called out that the grant review board would hear all requests for greater than 50,000, and anything less than 50,000 would be determined administratively by the development services director. I would propose and make a motion that we change both terms, that we strike the grant review board, section 11, and that we change section 8 of the review process to have this board do all reviews of this particular program until we change it again when we're ready to move forward with an increased governance.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Yep, I see. Well, I'll take Chris's second. I saw it first. Motion on the floor from Don Hokinson, second by Chris Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or nay or thumbs down. All right, motion carries. Thank you for that. Rich, hand up.
I think I'm ready to move forward. I do want to say to Kathleen's point, though, I fully think moving forward, we need deadlines. This is a little different. And I also think that, I can't remember who said it, but we're past, this has been going on since December. So I think we need to move forward. But it also does sound like at least a reasonable opportunity, or reasonable, it's been reasonably tried to reach the businesses. And at some point you reach that threshold where the cutoff is, and I think we're there. And for that reason, I would be comfortable moving forward with the two we have, and especially since we can add to it later if something really comes up.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right, I don't feel. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Just a quick logistical thing, Mayor. We don't have to do this. I just thought, in the interest of time, usually with this sort of thing, I'll send out a doodle poll. It takes several days to get that, but if the board would like to, we could pick a date now if you want to.
Yeah, you want to give us a proposed date that works within staff's timeline?
I guess I would defer to Jordan for some of that. You're muted, Jordan.
So we have RIA's, which is nearly done, right, David? In terms of
Yeah, it's ready to review.
just package it together and review it. So we can do it this week. And then I don't know when the second would be, when Boring Brewing would be ready for review. Does it make sense to aim for later in the week or early next week to just do it all at the same, or do it, you know, if there's availability by the board this week, as soon as maybe tomorrow, we can do RIA's.
Yeah.
I would rather get Boring. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'll defer to you guys. I don't want to meet every other day while we look at it one at a time. I'm sorry. I like you guys. I don't like you that much. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But yeah, I'd rather have a couple and then we can look at them if everybody is agreeable to that.
The problem with Boring Brewing is that we're finalizing the design tomorrow. I'm meeting with the building owner, the business owner, and the design guy tomorrow. From there, once we have the design guy modify the design, if it needs to be modified at all, then we'll have to put it out to bid. So, and I can make the bid turnaround time. Normally we give 30 days, but I can make the bid turnaround time much shorter than that. I think since we have established relationships with most of the companies that might bid, or at least I know them well enough, I think that I could get them to respond to that bid much quicker than that, maybe a week to 10 days.
I hear it's over 30 days, so that could be on a different council meeting for Boring Brewing.
Yeah, I say we save Boring Brewing for our next council meeting and we do an emergency for this next one. Okay. All right. And you can be as ready as fast as tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll make it happen.
I'm not the one that said tomorrow.
I guess.
I will, whatever the board decides on, I will make it happen.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, David, is that you're waiting until you have actual contracted bids before you get us to approve it, right?
That's correct, because we don't know how much the project will cost until the bids come back.
Yeah. And that's not usually how grants go, of course. They don't usually have it all bid out. I mean, they have good estimates. And so one of the things I was going to make a motion about is to propose that, you know, our March 1st meeting have a breakout session for the urban renewal to have everybody contacted by email by the development director, make sure they're contacted, follow up, and then have the deadline for additional grants put in by March 1st. And then if you want to, you know, give people, you know, that's at least for the next round of grants or something. And if you want to, you know, and you get who you get, and then if you want to give them another round because they weren't on the bus or whatever, in another, you know, month or 2 months or whatever, that's up to y'all. You know, we can decide that. But I make a motion that we have a March 1st grant deadline and grant review. I guess a few days before the March 1st meeting, so we can review them and make a decision on the next round of grants with a March 1st date.
I just, does that mean that we're not voting on RIAs until March 1st now?
No, I'm okay with going ahead with RIAs, and if you want, you know, and if I don't know what the rush is on the Boring Brewing, but if you want to go along with that, I'll you know, do that to just be cooperative. But at this point, I think it's time to get our ducks lined up, and let's have a deadline and an application process and the contacts made the way it really should be done. So March 1st is my motion that we have for the next round of grant reviews.
Okay, hold on, there's a motion on the floor. I do want to recognize Lori, who's got her hand up.
Yeah, because I have a question on the motion. I have a question on the motion, Kathleen.
Sure.
So David Snyder, with your experience with this process, okay, say I'm a business in town. You contact me tomorrow. I've got to get all my ducks in a row because say I didn't know for whatever the reason. And now I've got to get a contractor to give me a bid or a couple contractors to give me a bid. Is March 1st a reasonable deadline to accomplish all of that? I just want to make sure, Kathleen, we're giving these people enough time, right? I agree with you on the deadlines. I just want to make sure we're giving them enough time.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we wouldn't, the first step in the process is to develop a design, and the applicants have the choice of getting their own, having their own design done by a design professional, or using, we have a gentleman that we're contracting with to do design work, that did the design work for the structure we're using as a model down at Boardstead Park. So we'd need to have a design first before we could get any sort of bids as to what they're going to build, because the contractor wouldn't know what they're building without that.
And to answer your question, Lori, that's a great point. You know, I guess my interest is, you know, first of all, that we have a deadline. Second of all, that, you know, if there's a bunch of other folks besides these two that are almost there, that we give them a timely deadline to get it so that, you know, they can get going and get bids and get it kind of contracted out before the contracting season really hits. And then, like I said, if there's some other folks that just heard about it and need more time, we might want to go with another round a month or two later to allow them to get money if there's anything left.
Guys, we got to go fast. I mean, now we're 30 days, 60 days. We started talking about this in December. It's February 1st. This is supposed to be an emergency relief program. I mean, this is why people laugh at city government. This is why people laugh at government. We got to get going here, guys. Yeah, I understand the need for a process. I understand the need to do it right. I want to do all those things, but damn it, we got to get going. People need help out there right now, and we got to help them. All right. So I hear all these concerns. I want to do it, but we got to get we got to get going. And I mean that for staff. I mean that for staff probably more than council, what I hear tonight. Really disappointed with where we're at today on February 1st, you know, on this program, that from the get-go, our council and urban board direction was speed and to help people. And now it's February 1st. That was not the intent of this program. Jeremy, you had something to say?
Yeah, my thing was about having some of the deadlines because of some of the process of the design issue. So, and getting the bids from different businesses, it's going to take different times. And so that was part of the process there. That is part of, I don't want to call it the red tape, but just the due diligence of having a design, getting the 3 bids and those type of things for a business. So to have an end of a deadline for that, I think that was the intent for some of that. Is, I don't want to call it first come, first serve, but different people in the pipeline at different places in that pipeline. And so it's really hard to say by March 1st, will, you know, that business, if they decide to, you know, get their own bids versus us getting the bids, or their design versus our designer, you know, we're trying to streamline that with using some of our own designer. And so that, you know, those are some of the logistical pieces with having maybe by the end of, you know, March 1st, you know, you have to have your stuff in to qualify for this grant. It's not quite the same as maybe the state or federal grants in that aspect of things. So I think it's, that was all I was going to say before.
Well, grant application processes are done all the time. And I don't know that we necessarily need to have contracted bid prices, because that's not usually how it gets done. When I do a grant, I guess, you know, I get a lot of information and get estimates and all that, but I don't have a final bid. And then I increase it by 25 to 50% because it could go over. And then that's how much money I ask for. And then if I need more money, then, you know, we have probably an opportunity that, you know, if the bid came in high and they need some more money, we could always, and there's more money left on the table, we could probably go back and look at it. But at this point, I agree, we want to get it done, but, you know, we just can't be, you know, we need to have, the grant process is not that complicated. Everybody does it, and they don't do it the way it's been done. So I really want to make sure that we're doing it the right way, and that we have an application and good numbers, and good enough to, you know, we don't have to have it perfect numbers, but good enough numbers to kind of make the allocations. And yeah, March 1st is, you know, we could at least go with another round on March 1st. That's timely. That gives them a month to kind of get their next round of applications in. And then if, you know, if we need to make some more dates for the, you know,
late minute Lucy folks, then let's do that. But I'm agreeing with you, Stan, Mayor Stan. I think it's important to kind of get this done, but I also want to give folks a deadline so they know what they need to work towards.
I hear you. Rich, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I feel like we're being a little counterproductive here a little bit. And perhaps we just need to move forward. I think that we can set a date tonight would be my proposal, that we set that date for that emergency. I think we move forward with REIAs. This has been very educational for myself. So David, thank you for that. While there are gaps that I wish would have been better, I think between you and Chris, you guys painted that you guys did make a reasonable effort to get it out. And at some point it does come back on the businesses. And there is, in my experience, there is a difference between, having dealt with both, there is a difference between government grants and private grants that go to private or nonprofits. There's a difference. Usually you're not able to budget the buffer there in the nonprofit side and private side. So while I agree with a lot of that Kathleen says, I think the timelines are more important for the businesses, but at some point, like, you gotta make a decision and get it over with. And I feel like December, if you guys have put it out in all the venues that you've said, Chris, if you put it out through your guys' network, some of this, I mean, I'm not trying to put the fault on the business. I realize it's hard times, but some of it does come onto them too. And so if we did run into this situation that we ran out of money, I think we can straight face that. But at this point, let's move forward with what we got. Let's make a plan for thereafter. And we can set deadlines so that the businesses have expectations, like that they can tell their contractor, I need to have this in by March 1st or April 1st or whatever fits into their business model. But at some point too, if the money's not there, the money's not there. And we got to but we do need to start moving forward in this. And we're running circles tonight. I kind of feel like.
That's right, Rich. Yeah, totally. Jeff and then Don.
I just wanted to point out, Mayor, that we still have a motion on the floor from Councilor Walker.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, thank you. I just haven't seen, let's Don go, and then we'll address the motion.
I was going to make a motion, so I think we probably better deal with the motion.
Okay.
I would like to amend the motion to say that the deadline for the businesses to get the next round of grants in is February 25th, to be reviewed at the March 1st meeting. And then, yeah, that's the motion, amended motion.
Is there a second? A second from Councilor Sheldon. All right, so there's a motion by Councilor Walker, a second by Councilor Sheldon. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay or thumbs down? One thumbs down. Okay, motion carries. Don. Don, you're muted, bud.
Yeah. I move that we end this meeting and continue discussion at another time.
Oh, dude, I second that so fast, and I don't think I'm allowed to.
Are we going to find a time?
But are we going to, I think we do need to address the situation. Are we going to come back and vote on the REIAs? To me, that's separate from what we just voted on.
Yep.
For the 25th. I think that we have an application on the table or in the chute or wherever it's at, but it's there. We'll call it there. And the other deadline is for any future applications that's coming in. We're making it clear and objective to the businesses that we're going to deal with this on this date. To me, that I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And then we can set deadlines thereafter if still applicable. But we need to address the REIA's application right now. And I'm all for coming back whenever in the evening, even if it's going to be from my smartphone, wherever I'm at. So.
And according to my notes, carving out REIAs to vote on or to approve earlier was part of her original motion. So I think that's.
And set that no earlier than Wednesday. I just checked the statute, and 24 hours advance notice before the meeting. So at this point, unless you want to have a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, make it for Wednesday at the earliest.
Yeah, I will not be available tomorrow. Might not even be available until Thursday or so. But
Jeremy, what time's the meeting Wednesday?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I don't think Well, we can always punt that meeting because this is important and this is economic development. But the meeting is at 6:30 on Wednesday. So we can meet before that on Wednesday if we want to do that.
6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock and just hold, guys, 30 minutes.
Yep.
So can we have the plan in front of us so we can review that ahead of time? And if we have questions, maybe send those questions to staff ahead of time so that they can be prepared.
We have the application by tomorrow afternoon, David?
Yeah, I'll make it happen.
Great.
Can you send out a meeting invite, Jeff?
Will do.
Oh,
Do you have something? Not 100% of us, by the way, need to be part of this.
that's right. That's right. Anyways, I'll figure my end out. All right. Cool. All right. Can I adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We don't need it. That's the one power I get. Let's get out of here. Let's go ahead and adjourn this meeting, guys. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.